Ladies and gentlemen, every single Set 3 Disney Lorcana card has been revealed, and we're going to take a quick whistle-stop tour looking at every single card, starting with the locations. And I'm joined by my friend Moyen, who is a top Lorcana player and also a member of the Podcana podcast. How's it going, Moyen? What's up?
I'm doing very well. We reviewed some of the cards already on the podcast, but we're doing like some each episode. So there's a lot of cards I don't know yet, and a lot of their power level will be contextual, but I'm looking forward to giving first honest impressions.
Yeah, same here. There's quite a few cards I've not yet seen yet, so this is our instant reaction. First card we're looking at is Belle's House, a location. For those that aren't familiar with how locations work, this is a 1-cost card. It's inkable. The number to the left is the amount of ink it costs to move a character to this location, and the number to the right is its willpower, its defense. So locations can be challenged like any other card, except they do not have to be exerted to be challenged. So Belle's House then, it's costing 2 to move the card to this location. It has 6 willpower, and the ability is if you have a character here, you pay 1 ink less to play items. This is a rare card. Instant impression, Moyen?
It's a little expensive, not as it costs a lot of ink. It's just using an entire card for this effect can be a little rough. I think it will be at its best when you reduce items from 1 to 0 cost. Like chaining 0 cost popsicles jumps to mind. But spending an entire card on a location that doesn't gain any lore is a big cost.
Yeah, and it's also costing you 1 to play and then 2 to move the character there, and then it can also be removed. I do agree that it seems pretty expensive, but honestly, as we look through more of the locations, that's kind of my opinion on a lot of the locations. So it's worth bearing in mind there's perhaps cards we're going to be looking at later which might give this more synergy and make this a better card.
Yeah, so at first, let's just evaluate the locations based on just what they do, but bearing in mind there might be synergies that will still make these locations worthwhile to play.
Yep, okay. And next we have Deville Manor, which costs 1. It costs 1 ink to move a card there. It has 4 willpower, and it gains 1 lore passively. So every turn at the start of your turn, if this location is still on the board, you get 1 lore. So if you play this on turn 1, at the start of turn 2, if it's still on the board, you will gain 1 lore passively. This card is pretty okay, I think. It's comparable to perhaps just a standard 1-drop, but without any synergy, I would generally prefer a standard 1-drop that has strength as opposed to just a location. Would you say the same?
Yeah, baseline this is just a 0-4 that they can always attack, and the 0-4 that costs for 1, which doesn't impress me at all.
Yep. Okay, up next we have the Bio, which is whenever a character quests while here, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card.
Yeah, so I think this is even worse than the last one. I think in general you value 1 more willpower more than this effect.
Yep. I would agree.
Yep.
I would agree. Okay, Jolly Roger. This one is very interesting because it's uninkable. It costs 2 ink to move a card here, but it has 5 willpower. Characters gain rush while here, but importantly, all your pirate characters may move here for free. So if there's lots of pirate synergy, every time you play a pirate with Jolly Roger on the board, they can move into the location for free and they'll gain rush. Thoughts?
So if your deck already wants to play a decent amount of pirate cards, even without the synergy, then I see a lot of value in this card. Even having to move stuff here for 2 is not the end of the world.
I quite like the look of this one, I have to say. Compared to the other locations, this is my favorite one so far, but it does really depend on how many pirate characters you're going to want to play in your deck.
Yeah. Also bearing in mind this is the first uninkable one, so it needs to be a little bit better as well to see any play.
Okay, we have Neverland here, which is the identical card to Deville Manor, which we already talked about. So we think this card's okay, but probably worse than a standard 1-drop that's a character without any synergies.
Yeah. So for all of these cards, we need synergies for these to be playable, otherwise they're trash.
Okay, up next we have Forbidden Mountain. Forbidden Mountain, pretty similar to Deville Manor, except it has 2 more willpower, but it costs twice as much. So I would say this is the worst location we've seen so far. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I can't spend 2 to play no 6.
And next we have Maui's Place of Exile. This has the ability of characters gain resist +1 while here. Resist is a very powerful keyword, Moyen, but this one isn't gaining any lore passively. Thoughts on this card?
Maybe even worse than the last one, because while the characters having resist matters a little bit, this also has less willpower, so it's easier to trade this off, and it doesn't threaten any lore.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this one either. Okay, another 2 costs. We have Motani. Whenever a character is banished while here, you may put that card into your inkwell face down and exerted. This is also getting 1 lore passively per turn.
This effect's actually quite powerful, I think. The only issue I see with the card is that how often will our opponent be able to instead destroy this location and then destroy the characters, and then you're not getting all that much out of it either.
Yeah, that's true. So if you play this on turn 2, then perhaps on turn 3 you could move a card there and start questing or challenge with your own card there. If you kind of sacrifice a Gramma Tala, for example, in this location, that could be a lot of ramp potential.
Yeah, you will need to be trading off your own characters, I think, because other than that, your opponent is very heavily incentivized to just trade off the location first. So what you want to be doing is, I guess, move a card there and then also challenge with it.
Yep.
But take a challenge where your character dies is just usually not the type of challenge that you want to be taking, but with something like Gramma that can work very well.
Yeah, maybe a card like Teeth and Ambitions as well, to sacrifice one of your own cards in this location could be something that works. Okay, another 2 cost Inkable, and this is Nottingham, and it's an identical card to... This one's an identical card to Forbidden Mountain, so I think, again, we aren't big fans of this location. It's pretty bad. Okay, my first time seeing this one, it's an uninkable as well. 2 cost Pride Lands. It costs 2 ink to move a card here. It has 7 willpower. Characters get +2 willpower while here. And if you have a prince or king character here, you pay 1 ink less to play characters.
This first impression, this has a lot of potential, right? All you need to do is move a prince or king character there, and suddenly you might be able to flood the board with a bunch of cheap characters.
Yep. It is expensive to move a card there, but if there's some way of getting a card in here on the cheap, perhaps as we look at more character cards we can bear that in mind, then Pride Land seems like it has a lot of potential. And it's also nice to see this prince and king synergy starting to enter the game as well.
But also, one synergy that immediately jumps to mind is if you have a Stitch Rockstar out, and then suddenly you can play 1 or 2 costs for 1 or 0, and flood the board while drawing cards. That can also be very, very strong.
Yeah, definitely. And Rockstar Stitch actually has a lot of support with this set, as we're going to discover as we look at the next character cards. Okay, up next onto the 3 costs locations, we have Aragba, which quests or has 2 passive lore, but only 5 willpower. And my problem with this card is, compared with some of the cheaper locations, this card you're going to be playing down on turn 3, and it can be challenged instantly. It does not have to be exerted, and therefore it's very likely that this card is actually going to get you no lore at all. What's your thoughts on this location?
Yeah, I think I'm not a big fan of these locations. So they have, in comparison to characters, they have higher willpower and questing power than them, but it's just they don't deal any damage in return. So I think what locations will push the meta towards in general is maybe that we will start valuing more attack on the characters. And right now we are valuing willpower a lot more in Lorcana.
Yep.
But maybe that shifts the meta a little bit, but also that meta shift will be very hostile towards locations. And then I don't think you get a lot of value out of just playing vanilla locations to quest.
Okay, we have Kuzco's Palace. This one has the ability, whenever a character is challenged and banished while here, banish the challenging character. Now, my instant issue with this one is that your opponent decides... So if you've got a card in Kuzco's Palace and it costs you an awful lot to get it into Kuzco's Palace, why would they challenge a card there? You can't force them to, unless there is a way of forcing them to challenge one of your cards. This just doesn't seem good to me at all. Unless there's something I'm missing.
Even when you give your which Emerald is capable of doing. You can give your opponent's characters Reckless. They can still just challenge the location, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it's extremely expensive to get a card there, and even then, I guess once it's there, your opponent is so incentivized to banish the location instead that maybe that protects your character a little bit. But to me, that just seems the cost seems far too high.
Okay, another uninkable location, and so far the uninkable ones are the ones I've been most impressed with. This is Tiana's Palace. Characters can't be challenged while here. Okay, I like the look of this one already. It's 3 cost uninkable, and it does cost 2 ink to move a card there. But if you've got some kind of powerhouse quester, then it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to remove that card. If you move it there instantly, quest there, suddenly you can gain a lot of lore and a lot of threat, and 8 willpower is a lot. It's also gaining you 1 lore passively each turn as well.
This is a lot more impressive than something like Cusco's Palace because it truly protects your characters from being challenged, where the other one was just like incentivizing them not to, but if it's really important, they might still do it. Now they literally can't do it, and I think it's a lot more worthwhile.
Okay, the last 3 cost location, this one is inkable. Broom Closet, your characters named Magic Broom may move here for free. So that's already like a very interesting part of this ability. As soon as you've got a location where you can potentially move characters there for free, it does become a lot cheaper and more affordable. And characters get +1 lore while here. So if there's Magic Broom deck, and there is some more Magic Brooms entering the game here, then this is certainly going to be a card that you would include in that deck. I think the question really is how good will the Magic Broom deck be? But if the Magic Broom deck is good, this card is going to be good. You're not so sure
even
about
then,
that.
maybe this card could still be bad because it sounds nice that characters get +1 while there, but also your characters are not protected there.
Yep.
And this location doesn't gain any lore itself. So I think how it will play out a lot of the time is just even if when you move your cards there, they will just kill all the characters, and leave up the Sorcerer's Tower, and you are not actually getting a lot of value out of the Sorcerer's Tower sticking to the board.
But if you have a lot of Magic Brooms, then you can flood the board with Magic Brooms potentially. But I tend to agree. My gut feeling is that Magic Brooms aren't going to be particularly good anyway, and therefore this probably won't see play. But if you are playing a Magic Broom deck, I'm sure that this will be in the deck. Okay, onto the 4 costs. We have the Queen's Castle. At the start of your turn, for each character you have here, you may draw a card. And this one has 2 lore, and it only costs 1 ink to move a card there. It has 7 willpower. This is a rare card. I can see why it's more of a rare location, but it is costing you 4 ink to play it initially. And I think a problem that a location like this has is, again, by turn 4, your opponent is quite likely to have a developed board, and it's possible they might be able to remove the Queen's Castle before it gets any value at all. If it can stick on the board, though, for a turn, you're already getting 2 lore, and then you're potentially also getting some card draw as well. So it has a high ceiling, but you're not going to be able to play this card on the board if your opponent's already got a developed board. Things like Captain Hook could cause this a lot of issues.
Yeah, so at least this card can do something very powerful under the right circumstances. It's just still those circumstances are not that easy to meet. It might stick a turn if you just drop this on the curve, and then already tank some damage. But then probably you just play it without moving cards there if you play it on curve, and then it dies the turn after. So I don't know how easy it will be to actually get card draw out of this.
Yeah, that's the thing as well, right? You have to commit to moving at the start. Let's say you play Queen's Castle, you then have to commit to moving cards into Queen's Castle that same turn. Otherwise, it's very likely you're going to get no value at all. And then even if you do move cards to the Queen's Castle, then your opponent is very heavily incentivized to just remove this instantly. So even though I'm saying you play it on turn 4, you most likely want to move cards there the same turn as well. So maybe you can't even play this card until turn 5 or turn 6 or something like that. And therefore, it's quite likely that it's just going to get removed instantly. So while the ability is potentially very powerful, it does run the risk of just playing for no points at all.
Yeah, what I'm wanting to see is something that rewards you for moving a character there instantly instead of something that rewards me for moving a character there in case both the characters and the location survives.
Yep.
For the entire turn. So just the payoff is very strong.
Okay, this one is an uninkable RLS Legacy, which is a bit of a weird name. I'm not really aware of what this is talking about in the lore, but this is getting 2 passive lore, costs 3 to move a character here, and has 8 willpower. Characters gain evasive while here, and if you have a character here, you pay 2 ink less to move a character of yours here.
So once you move to 1 character there, you might be able to move a lot of characters there for just the cost of 1, but then you're playing an uninkable for 4, moving 1 card there for 3, and then the rest of them for 1.
I do also want to mention a card we're going to be looking at in Ruby, which is a legendary card, is able to play a location which costs 4 or less for free. So this seems like, because it's a Ruby card, this seems like it's going to be the main target for that deck. So I can definitely see this one seeing a lot of play for that reason.
Yes, but that's because that card is very powerful,
Sure.
I think. So because baseline this card just seems very expensive. But also potentially kind of scary, just because of how good the evasive keyword can be.
Yeah, and 8 willpower is a lot as well. That's going to take a couple of cards most likely to be able to remove it. Something that survives Maui, for example, I think is still an important stat line, right? So Maui has 6 strength. So the fact that this is able to survive a hit from Maui is probably quite significant.
Yep.
Okay, we have Fang, which is inkable, 2 lore passively. Characters gain ward and evasive while here, but it only has 6 willpower. So it does die to Maui, which I think is a real sad thing.
Yeah, at least it's inkable, and it's your characters don't get much more protected than having ward and evasive. The only thing that's missing would be like resist as well. Yeah, I still think I still don't really see it. I guess it's all of these 4-cost locations. We can look at them in combination as with being cheated out with the 5-cost in Ruby. For that, it's pretty decent.
Okay, and the final location is McDuck's Manor, Scrooge's Mansion, which gains 2 lore passively, but it has 9 willpower. That's a lot of defense. Not doing too much apart from that, though. It's just a location on the board to gain lore passively. I would wager that this is quite comparable to some of the 1-cost cards, that you're most likely to want to just play a character with decent stats that quests for 2, rather than a location which can be instantly removed before it gets any value.
At least this is a very sticky location for any location synergy cards.
Definitely. All right, now let's look at all the other cards which aren't just locations. Okay, now we're going to look at all of the other cards. Wait, let me just... Okay, we're now going to look at all of the other cards, starting with the 1-drops. We've got Minnie Mouse, Funky Spelunker. When this character is at a location, she gets +2 strength. So it would be a 2/3 at a location, which quests for 1, which is obviously above curve. But of course, it does cost you ink to move her to a location. My feeling is this card is not great. Thoughts?
Yeah, a 2/3 for 1 would be great. It's just the cost is too much, I think. And once you do move this to a location, your opponent might just react and destroy the location before killing the Minnie Mouse, and then every time this will have zero strength, the downside will be huge. So I don't think the card's crazy.
Yep. The next 2 we have Kida and Milo, who are just 2 very standard 2/2 1-drops. However, they are both shift targets, so we're going to be looking at they're both legendary shift targets. In fact, the 2 cards shifting onto these 2 cards are 2 legendary cards, which we'll be taking a look at, so that's worth bearing in mind. We have Voyage, and Voyage is a very interesting card. It's an action. Move up to 2 characters of yours to the same location for free. So often cards like this, which are cheap and have an ability that don't draw you cards, aren't worth including all the time. However, we've seen that there's a lot of locations which do cost you a lot of ink usually to move cards there, but have potentially quite powerful abilities. So Voyage could be an enabler card to play those locations. The thing this card is really missing for me, though, is the fact that it's not drawing you a card at all. It's not replacing itself in hand, but it is inkable, and therefore it is a card which, if you're playing locations, maybe I could see you playing like 2 or 3 copies of. What do you think on Voyage? I think it's a really interesting card to evaluate.
I think it's saying that you can move the 2 cards there for free is very, very ironic, because you're paying an entire card and 1 ink to play the card, which totally makes it not for free, reminding me of like I don't know, buying a laptop and getting the USB stick for free.
Okay, so you're not too high up on Voyage.
Yeah, I think the cost of using an entire card for this type of effect is huge.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
I'm not really high on Voyage.
Agreed. Okay, up next we have Cursed Merfolk. Now, this is a card I like a lot. It's an uninkable 1 cost which quests for 2, but it has no strength and only 1 willpower. Whenever this character is challenged, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So this is Emerald's version of Lilo or Maleficent, and I am a huge fan of this card. If you think about Lilo and Maleficent, while they do have that 1 strength, that's not really what you care about. You want them to just be questing. You don't really care about that 1 willpower. It's often irrelevant. And this card is therefore just better than Lilo and Maleficent, in my opinion, because you're also forcing your opponent to discard a card if this is removed in a challenge. I think this is an incredible card, Moyen.
Yeah, I think this is incredible. As you said, the 1 strength on Lilo doesn't matter as much. Of course it matters, but I think it matters less than this type of effect where they have to discard a card. Like you're not playing this card to develop a crazy board to contest the board. It's just you're forcing your opponent to contest this, and you're gaining lore along the way, and then also they have to discard a card. So that's already good enough. But another strength about this card, I think, is that if you're playing this hyper aggressive deck and you're forcing your opponent play an early character, which maybe they otherwise wouldn't want to do, and then also challenges, and then also discard a card, that will force some decks to reduce their hand size by so much that they will need to ink cards they otherwise wouldn't want to ink, and maybe if they play a high amount of uninkables, also force them into this type of game where they actually stop inking at a much lower point than they usually would, and like force them to play the game that you want to play. So I think this card's incredible.
Yeah, I think this card's so good that it's very likely to start seeing a lot more damage pings in the meta. So things like Steel being able to deal with this, obviously, with just some removal and not forcing you to discard a card. I think that is very likely that Steel is going to be the best answer to this card, of course. Next, we have Olympus Would Be That Way, which is an action. Your characters get +3 attack this turn while challenging a location. I don't like this card in a very similar way, that it's just not replacing itself in hand. You're wasting a card in hand just for a small ability for 1 turn, and this won't see any play. Would you agree?
Yeah, I completely agree. So the strength of this card would come from you having multiple characters on the board that all want to be challenging locations, and there being a lot of locations on the board that you wouldn't be able to clear otherwise. And I think those conditions are very hard to meet.
Yeah.
So I think this card's very bad.
I guess we have Bestow a Gift, another 1-cost action, which I'm usually not a huge fan of these types of cards unless they say draw a card. Move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character.
This card's much better than the other ones though, because it gives you access to like a ping damage.
Yep.
Which, especially in Amethyst, is not really something you usually have access to. So often also your opponent leave their characters at 1 willpower after their trades, and still feel very safe about that. And this way you can deal that ping damage and hopefully maybe even heal up 1 at the same time. Which is still not incredible, but I think it's nice utility to have access to on an inkable card.
Yep, agreed. Worth bearing in mind, you wouldn't be able to remove Cursed Merfolk with this card though on turn 1, because you need damage on your own card in order to be able to move the damage counter elsewhere.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes the card a lot worse. So you need a damaged character or this like that card in your hand.
Yep.
Okay, I'm changing my mind. The card's actually really bad.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either, but it's definitely an interesting ability. Okay, up next we have Pluto, which is another shift target, I do believe. It has 0 strength, 2 willpower, but you can exert it and pay 1 less ink for the next character you play this turn. So this card is quite comparable to Doc, except Doc is a 3-cost card, and it has the same ability, but when it quests. So Pluto, instead of gaining 1 lore, you can ramp with it this way. So you can play Pluto on turn 1. Then on turn 2, you can quest with Pluto and play a 3-cost card on turn number 2.
You cannot quest with Pluto.
So you, not quest. You would exert it. I beg your pardon. Yes.
So I think baseline this card's not very good, but it definitely enables plays that would otherwise not be possible playing a 3-drop on 2, and maybe there will be playlines where that's very powerful. Yeah. Just baseline, just cheating this 1 resource like that without gaining any extra lore on a card with 0 strength is not very strong.
Yeah, and my problem with this card is the fact it's uninkable. I can see it being a card that's nice to play on turn 1, but outside of that, I feel like you wouldn't really want to go for it, right? Like you've got a card like Lantern, for example, which is an uninkable 2-drop, which has a very similar ability, except Lantern is much more difficult for your opponent to remove. Pluto is likely going to exert itself once and then be removed very, very quickly. And with its lack of strength, just doesn't seem like it's flexible enough to see play. It is a shift target, worth bearing in mind as well. Okay, up next we have Diablo, which is whenever you play a character named Maleficent, you may look at the top card of your deck, put it on either the top or bottom of your deck. Now, there's a lot of Maleficent cards. The problem I have with Diablo is that Amethyst already has so many consistency tools that I just don't think that this card is going to be worth it. Thoughts?
Yeah, at least the Maleficent cards are all good already anyways. At least the 3-cost draw card Maleficent and the 9-cost in Ruby. But still, I don't think that this card's effect makes the cut on. It's just you even in a deck where you're already playing Maleficents, I don't think this card's good enough because you don't want this 1-cost 2/1 in those situations where you don't get the effect off, and when you get the effect off, it's actually not that incredible.
Yeah, like Minnie Mouse and Olaf are just trading up with this card. They're able to remove it and stick, and I think that is just really, really bad. Okay, we have It Calls Me next, which is an action. A character with 1 action song. A character with cost 1 or more can sing this song for free. Draw a card, shuffle up to 3 cards from your opponent's discard into your opponent's deck. So this card is replacing itself. You can sing it with any character in the game because there's no such thing as a 0-cost character. And it's replacing itself. What you're doing is you're making your opponent's draws worse. Now, I think this card could be good if there's some kind of payoff for having more cards in your opponent's deck. For example, in Gwent, there's a card which grows in points each turn, depending on how many cards your opponent has left in their deck. But to my knowledge, there is no such card in set 3. So this is a card which maybe down the line could be good, but right now I don't think it's going to see play.
So basically, I think the shuffle up to 3 cards from your opponent's discard into your opponent's deck is actually like the less important of this card.
Mm-hmm.
It can be good if your opponent has already set up the top side of their deck, and now you're shuffling it to get rid of that knowledge. Because there's some cards like this card that do exactly that. So it could be counterplay to that. Other than that, maybe it makes the draws a little worse. Maybe it can be counterplay to, for example, the Ember Hades that we have that is able to recycle cards from the trash.
Mm-hmm.
It can also shuffle Popsicles into their deck if they're planning on getting those back with Krakatoa or the Fox.
Yep.
All of those things being said, I don't think that's actually the important part of this. I think 1-cost song Inkable that draws a card could maybe be good if we get a deck that's very reliant on drawing through their deck, or maybe if we get any action synergies.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
A 1-cost cantrip can be okay.
I mean, it's also worth mentioning as well that when we're seeing Ariel the singer, the 3-cost in Amber, we're used to seeing her paired with Steel. But if there was to be more songs with Amethyst and Ariel, then maybe this is just a card you could include in a deck that's playing that Ariel card.
Yeah, that's a very good card for if you pair it with Ariel, just to increase the density of songs without actually making your deck worse.
Okay, up next we have Boss's Orders. Chosen character gains support this turn. This card is terrible and we'll see no play, and I think that's all we need to say. Again, if it was saying this chosen character gains support this turn and draw a card, then maybe we'd be talking. But without that, there's no way it's ever seeing play.
Yeah, no reason to talk about it.
Okay, up next we have a very standard Robin Hood. There is some shift Robin Hoods as well, so that's worth bearing in mind. We have Zazu, which is while this character is at location, he gains +1 lore. So it would be getting 2 lore if at a location. Of course, the problem that Zazu has is it does cost you ink to move a card to a location, and for that reason, I struggle to see it seeing any play. But being able to quest for 2, of course, is quite nice, especially for an inkable 1-drop.
Yeah, it's the first inkable 1-drop that can quest for 2, right?
I think so.
It's just maybe it's hard to say it's a 1-drop because it will cost you 2
Yeah.
to actually quest for 2. Still an alright card, I think.
Quick patch, remove up to 3 damage from chosen location. Same thing, it's not drawing you a card, it's just way too niche for a card. You're going to be removing 1 card in hand to play this, and its impact is just too small.
Yep.
Okay, up next we have Chernobog's Minions, which is whenever this character quests, you may banish this character to draw a card.
Huh.
This is a very interesting ability. First time seeing this one for me. The instant thing is that you can quest with it for 1 and then just draw a card, banishing it instantly. But then if your opponent doesn't have a card on board, which can trade for this well, like let's say they play a Minnie Mouse, for example, you quest with this and then just banish it. Whereas if they play a 2-drop, you could just, a 2/2, you could just leave it on the board anyway because your opponent might be forced to trade with it. So it seems like a pretty flexible option to have.
Yeah, I think it's very alright, especially in like let's say you're playing a control deck or like a slower deck, but you want to play something to contest the aggression of aggressive early game decks, and then you might just play something like this in your deck where if you don't need it to contest, you might just cycle the card or ink it. Or you can even contest the board and just depending on what they play, because they will maybe, let's say they will respect this and play a 1/3 instead of a 1/1 that quests for 2. Maybe you're already happy that they did that instead, and then you can just cycle the card. I think it's a very interesting card for sure, and I think it's all right.
Yeah, I actually quite like it. It's got so much flexibility, right? It's inkable. You can challenge a character to remove it. You can quest with it and then banish it and draw a card if you want. It's got lots going for it. It's just a very flexible card. It doesn't excel in any particular area, but it's never bad, I guess. Like you can just choose what you want and what you need for that particular game.
Yep.
Okay, we've got Belle's House, which we talked about. All the locations that cost 1 we talked about already. Then we've got I Will Find My Way. A character with cost 1 or more can exert and sing this song for free. Chosen character gets +2 attack this turn, and they may move to a location for free.
Not free. We paid an entire card again.
Well, you could sing it with a 1-drop.
Okay. Then we didn't quest with that card, but somewhat free then. I don't think it's that good either.
Yeah, I think this again it's similar. I think what I'm really looking for with these 1-cost action or songs is that they need to draw a card for them to be worth considering.
Yeah, or at least remove an entire card or do something that's more impressive than just getting some power, getting resist, or moving a character to a location. I don't think it's good enough.
Having said that, though, if there's like big benefits for moving a character to a location, and you're playing it maybe in some kind of song deck as well, then perhaps this could see play. I think the location cards are the ones that are most difficult for us to evaluate, having not played the set 3 yet. So while this doesn't look great on paper, I could see a world where it turns out to be decent. Okay, up next. I love this card. Rafiki, Challenger 3. So it's similar to Captain Hook, except it has 2 strength. Whenever he challenges a hyena character, this character takes no damage from the challenge. Now, I don't know if there's any hyenas. There might be 1 or 2 in this set. But just in terms of its raw stats, I like the look of it quite a bit. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's very good against early aggression. It's the first card that's able to value trade the 1/3s that have been meta in set 2 as 1-drops. Because in set 2 it was all about playing 1/3s on 1, they're very sticky, they can trade stuff, and then you just bounce them with Meta Mim.
Yep.
And now that's still possible because they can immediately bounce them, but at least it's something that makes maybe dethrones 1/3s as just the plain always best play on 1.
Yep. Yeah, because there's Captain Hook, which this is comparable to, but Captain Hook only has 1 willpower, so it trades evenly with cards like Minnie Mouse. But as you mentioned, Rafiki is going to remove them while staying on the board himself. Yeah, I think this card is very, very good. I like it a lot. Okay, the final one drop.
Captain Hook also has two willpower.
What's that?
Oh, I guess Captain Hook can already
Captain
do
Hook
the
does have
thing we
2
talked
willpower.
about.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay, but it's another card. Actually, comparing this to Captain Hook, this is just if you ignore the hyena part, which shouldn't come into play that often, it is worse than Captain Hook. But at least it's Yeah, actually, I don't think its card select's great, but at least it gives a Captain Hook type card to a different ink color.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now that I'm comparing it to Captain Hook, it's actually
Captain Hook is a very good card, though.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know if you are allowed to be a worse card than Captain Hook, because Captain Hook is like an anti-aggressive card, but at least you can still occasionally quest with it because it has this 1 strength. With this card, if your opponent has any character on the board, you will never be allowed to quest.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take a value trade, it's still exposed with the 0 strength. Okay, I'm revising my opinion. I don't actually think this card's that good.
I really like this card. I mean, Captain Hook is, in my opinion, a very good card. But, okay, if you have a choice between this or Captain Hook, sure. But chances are, if you're playing this card, you're not playing Steel. And I think that it can definitely fit into a lot of decks.
It can still fit into some decks, yeah.
Okay, the final 1-cost card that we're looking at is Kit Cloud Kicker, which has Ward. This card is incredibly bad. This might be the worst card I've ever seen, ever.
It's awful because Ward is good to protect characters that you want to protect, but what point do you have in protecting this 0/1 that quests for 1?
And also, why is it called a Spunky Bear Cub? I'm not sure I like that name either. Okay, Piglet Pooh Pirate Captain, and oh my god, Moyen, I love this card. It's the first 2-drop. When you have 2 or more other characters in play, this character gets +2 lore. So this is a 2-cost character which can quest for 3, and of course, instantly Rockstar Stitch pops to mind. And I think this is finally the set where Rockstar Stitch is going to come into its own.
I think this card's really good. Even having the potential to quest for 3 is good. And the condition is not that hard to meet because you can just play. It's not that hard to play 2 characters the turn after you played Piglet. No matter when you play Piglet.
You have a 1-drop on turn 1, you play Piglet on turn 2, and then on turn 3, you play another card, and then suddenly Piglet condition is already met, right?
But anytime you play Piglet, even on empty board, next turn it probably won't be that hard to just play 2 characters, even if they cleared everything else. So I guess 2/2 is not really the step line you're looking for. It can die very easily to defense ambitions, fire the cannons, let the storm rage on, grab your sword. But still, it is a card with very high potential, being able to quest for 3 as a 2-drop.
I've got a dream, which is a song action. Ready chosen character of yours at a location. They can't quest for the rest of the turn. Gain lore equal to that location's lore. So this is quite comparable to some of the Ruby cards already. There's like a 2-cost LeFou, which readies a card of yours. But this one has also got the benefit of being a song, and you can gain instant lore from it. I could actually see this card being pretty decent in the right deck.
So, okay. It says ready chosen character of yours at a location. They can quest. Okay, that part would never be good enough on its own. But also you're gaining lore of the locations.
Yeah, exactly.
So how much lore would you want to be gaining with this type of effect for the card to be good?
I mean, even 1 lore in the right kind of deck in like some kind of aggro deck could work. But then are you really wanting to play locations in an aggro deck? I'm not sure that you would be. But just imagine this on a card like Arthur, right? Like if you ready your Arthur, which is quite valuable, and then you are also gaining lore instantly. Like in the right style of deck, I could see it being good. My thinking is it's going to prove to be not too good because I think this is like kind of an aggro card almost, and I don't think you want to play locations in an aggro deck.
I think locations can fit in aggressive decks. It's just you're then very reliant on flooding the board with them just so you get in the lore before they can get the board back, because essentially locations don't fight for board very well, but maybe they can get some lore points in before that happens. It's just I don't think this card's that good even if all conditions are met. And there you need a location and a card that can quest this turn for it to do anything. So I don't think this card good either.
Yeah, no, I agree with you overall. I do agree. It's a card that's too many conditions to meet probably.
Yeah, just LeFou is not. LeFou is a pretty good card, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like an insane card at all. And I think I would.
LeFou's kind of low-key insane, not gonna lie. I think LeFou's
Okay.
very underrated.
But like most of the time, or basically all the time, I would rather play LeFou instead of I've Got a Dream.
Okay. Oh my goodness, what a huge card this one is. Ursula Deceiver. When you play this character, chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards a song card of your choice. Of course, that includes Grab Your Sword and Be Prepared, which are two of the most meta-relevant cards coming into set 3. Ursula's going to be everywhere, and it could completely warp the meta, right?
Yes. So the thing is, even if this misses, it's not the end of the world. Then you play the like below average 2-drop. But when this hits, my god, it hits.
Yeah.
I think even if it just discards. Okay, let's say it discards a key card like I don't know, Grab Your Sword or Whole New World or Be Prepared, like you said. I think then it's incredible. But even if it discards any card, a 2-cost 1/3 that makes your opponent discard a card is already very, very strong.
And you also
get
the
to 1/3 stat line is not that terrible. It's like, of course, maybe baseline would be a 2/3 that you would want, but I think 1/3 is very alright for this type of effect.
Yeah, this card's nuts. Stitch, which has Rush, is a 3/1. So this is quite comparable to Queen of Hearts, which is already in Ruby as a Rush character, which is an inkable 2/2. But Stitch is an uninkable 3/1. I do like the look of Stitch. Of course, it's a card which is able to remove bodyguards at 2/3, which we have Simba, but there's also another bodyguard we're going to be looking at in Steel, which is a 2/3. And therefore, if there's lots of bodyguards in the meta, I think Stitch is a great option to have for Ruby. Of course, the fact it's uninkable does mean that it lacks a little bit of flexibility, however, but I do like the look of this card a lot.
I think this card's awful. Basically, okay, not awful. So it being a 3/1 helps against the bodyguards, and it helps against location, because against locations you just want as much strength as possible. So in that regard, the stat line can be better than Queen of Hearts, but I think this being uninkable is very okay. It's actually not awful. At least it can still quest. So you can just develop this and try to quest with it next turn. You don't need to be rushing into anything. But I think I expect this being uninkable to be too much of a burden for most decks to want to actually include this card. But it's still a pretty good tool.
Okay. I think this is going to be, if the meta is like kind of warped around these bodyguard type cards, then I think this card
or if it warps around locations, this helps a lot against that.
I like the design of it, I have to say, but yeah, I think you're right that the uninkable nature of it for a cheap card might make it too awkward. Distract. Chosen character gets -2 strength this turn and draw a card. So this card, if it costs 1, I would be pretty interested in. I think it's a 2 cost. It's probably a little bit too expensive. You can't sing it either, so I don't think it's going to see play.
Yeah, me neither. It's like this effect giving something -2 strength is so niche that it's basically just 2 cost action draw a card, which isn't good enough.
Yeah. Okay, we have the Sorcerer's Hat. It costs 2 and exert and pay 1 ink to name a card, then reveal the top card of your deck. If it's the name card, put that card in your hand, otherwise put it on top of your deck. So this card only works at the next card we're going to look at, Moyen, which perhaps we should look at that card first before we evaluate this one, which is Dalmatian Puppy. And there's 5 different artworks for this card. You may have up to 99 copies of Dalmatian Puppy Tailwagger in your deck. And my question is, Moyen, imagine rocking up to your locals with a Dalmatian Puppy deck. Who's going to check that you've actually got 99 copies of Dalmatian Puppy and not 100?
Very important question. If my opponent turns up with a huge puppy deck, then I'm calling for a deck check. Or maybe I don't care because they're not winning the game.
So the idea with Sorcerer's... what's it called? Sorcerer's Hat, then, is that you just say Dalmatian Puppy and you pay 1 to draw a card. So, I mean, I don't think it's very good, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's good enough at all. I think there's also some other cards that will let Amethyst players manipulate the top of their deck. So maybe they will know the top of the deck for a few turns in a row, and then I think the Sorcerer's Hat can come into play. And then when you don't have those cards, you still have the off chance of just finding what you need. Let's say Okay, I think baseline the head's not great, but I think it's actually kind of decent. Also, there will be these spots where maybe you only win if you draw, let's say,
Be prepared.
the spell book or be prepared
Yeah.
or the gold because you need this last point of lore. It doesn't matter that you don't draw if you don't hit, because if you don't hit, you are losing anyways. So for that, it can sort of function as like pseudo card draw.
Yep.
I think the card's okay.
Yeah, I actually think that's a fair point. It's probably not as bad as I was thinking it is. Okay, up next we have Aurelian Gyrosensor, which is an item. Whenever one of your character's quests, you may look at the top card of your deck, put it on either the top or bottom of your deck. So this is a 2-cost item, and of course there's quite a lot of item synergy, especially with this set. It seems a little bit slow for my liking, but in the right deck where you're getting lots of value, if you have lots of items, I could see it seeing play.
I don't see this being played at all.
Yeah,
it's just
the truth be told.
Yeah, it costs an entire card, and then you also need your characters to quest. So basically, some power of this card lies in you being able to do this multiple times a turn, right? If you compare this to the 2-cost item in Amethyst that we had in set 1, what was it called? Cauldron?
Ursula's Cauldron.
If you compare this to Cauldron, Cauldron can do, okay, it's inkable, but Cauldron can do this each turn. This won't be able to do this every turn, but maybe you can do it multiple times a turn. But doing this effect multiple times a turn isn't actually that good, because every time you actually want to leave the card on the top of your deck, the next activation of this type of effect doesn't do anything.
I think
until
this
you draw
card's not
that card.
bad. I could see this being a card that you would play as like a 1 or 2 of. It's inkable. Ursula's Cauldron is uninkable.
Yeah, but Cauldron is already not good enough in any deck set 2.
Sure.
It was only good enough set 1.
Yeah, but also Sapphire has lots of item synergy potentially. Thus far, the item decks haven't been very good, right? But if the item decks do become good, then this, I think, would be a reasonable option to include.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I want my items to cost 1, and ideally draw a card, but not. I understand that not every item can say draw a card.
Sure. Okay, up next we have Della Duck, who is a 3/3 with Reckless. So she cannot quest, she doesn't have Rush, importantly, and she's uninkable. I think this card is quite a bit worse than the Stitch card, which you weren't a huge fan of.
Yeah, it's nice that it can value trade 2/3s, and 2/3s are very meta relevant. But even with Gaston, it doesn't compare that favorably.
Yep.
I think the 3/3 stat line is better than 4/2 most of the time. But I think especially Reckless characters are not allowed to be uninkable. Because that just means in a scenario where you need to quest with your characters, if you draw into this card, it doesn't even threaten that. And you can't ink it either, so I think it has huge potential to end up being dead.
Jim Hawkins is a very standard 3/2, which isn't going to see any play.
Yeah. 3/2s are better now than they used to be because of locations, but I think they're still bad.
Okay, one of the most important cards in the whole set, maybe the best card in the whole set in my opinion, which is Morph. You may play any character with Shift on this character as if this character had any name.
Oh, I actually think this card's bad.
Really?
Yeah, it's just okay. It's not just. I mean, this card's extremely contextual, right? But most characters that can shift and that we do want to play, their shift target is usually like a 1-cost 2/2, or at least it's usually better than a 2-cost 2/1. So I think I'd rather be playing those cards. Then again, Morph has the flexibility of you can shift any card onto this. But I just most of the time I don't think the shift mechanic is something you want to be doing. So it's like only good if you have a really broken shift card that is really good if it comes down earlier. Or let's say if you have a shift character which usually needs to be shifted upon something that's costing more than 2, because then Morph is actually like kind of cheating.
Like a Tinkerbell,
resources.
for example.
Yeah, but even for Tinkerbell, is it that crazy to be shifting upon a 2-cost 2/1 instead of a 3-cost 2/4?
I think this card is going to get value in decks in particular, which want to be singing 5-cost cards, right? So, for example, even though it's not particularly good, a mill deck, for example, this is going to provide a whole bunch of consistency for a mill deck, because what that deck really wants to do is on turn 3 shift a 5-cost onto this, and then you can just sing instantly. So in terms of consistency for combo decks, I think it's going to be great. I do think that your point is fair, though, that maybe this card is not quite as good as, for example, I initially suggested that it's one of the best cards in the set, but I feel like this card is going to find its place in quite a few decks. One big downside, of course, of shifting a card is you are losing an extra card in hand. So therefore, I think this card's going to be particularly good when combined with Steel, because then you've got the whole new world to maybe replenish your hand, for example.
Yeah. So, but I think in decks that want to cheat out a whole new world very often early, maybe it can work. So that would specifically be an Emerald Steel deck. So I actually do think this card has potential. It's just I think most decks won't want to play this card. This is a card that needs to be used for very specific things to be good.
Yeah, Emerald Steel definitely seems like the main combo with this card for both a mill deck, but then maybe just like some mid-range stuff as well that's perhaps less memes than mill. Okay, up next we have Milo Thatch, which is also a shift target. When this character is a location, he gets +2 strength. Doesn't seem great to me. I'd rather play the standard 2/2 Milo Thatch that costs 1.
Yeah, also a 2-cost 4/2 wouldn't even be that crazy of a card. And this is just a conditional 4/2 and often a 2/2. So I'm not a fan either.
Okay, up next we have Kida, which is Simba, but in Steel faction. Great card.
Yeah, Simba is a good card. Having Simba in another card is also a good card.
That also means you can play 8 Simbas in one deck. So perhaps an Amber Steel aggro deck is going to be quite popular for that reason. A big problem a lot of the Amber aggro decks have had in the past is just not having that option of a bodyguard consistently, and therefore Ruby and Amethyst, where they have cards like LeFou, which can ready characters, and Madam Mim, which can bounce characters back, have therefore become more popular for aggro decks. But now, Steel Amber, having a consistent bodyguard on turn 2 is definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, I agree.
Cleansing Rainwater, which is an item. Banish this item, remove up to 2 damage from each of your characters. Doesn't seem great to me.
Yeah, doesn't seem great to me either. It doesn't do anything on play. It doesn't give value each turn. It just gives delayed healing, which you can set up for some type of combo where you need to heal stuff. But yeah, it just doesn't seem great.
Scrooge's Top Hat, which is uninkable. You may pay 1 ink less for the next item you play this turn. So this card is very comparable to, for example, Dr. Facilier's cards in Emerald, which has the same effect, but for actions you play. Doesn't currently, Dr. Facilier's cards, see any play, and I would imagine that Scrooge's Top Hat is similar.
Yeah, so I think the easiest comparison is Lantern. Lantern is 10 times better.
Yeah.
And even Lantern was only like borderline good enough to be seen play in competitive decks. So I don't think Scrooge's Top Hat really makes the cut.
No. And next we have Miss Bianca, who has Singer 4, and she's a 2/2. Really depends on how good, like how much you want to be singing 4-cost songs. At the moment, Singer 5 is really the threshold you're looking for Whole New World and Grab Your Sword and things like that. So I'm not sure that Miss Bianca's too good.
Yeah. I know that there's a Steel song coming that costs 4 that deals 5 damage. That's very, very strong. But yeah, just it depends. Do we have good songs that need to be sung for 4? If so, this card can be good.
Okay, up next we have Huey, who has support, and whenever this character quests, if you have characters named Dewey and Louie in play, you may draw 3 cards. So obviously this is a very powerful ability potentially, but the truth be told, Dewey and Louie are not great cards, and therefore I don't think this is going to see any competitive play. If I'm not mistaken, this is these cards are all in the starter deck for Sapphire, though.
Yeah, so it can win you the game if you get this effect off, but it's just, I think most of the time you won't get this effect off, and just playing bad cards in your deck will lose you a lot of games.
Baboom, which is dealing 2 damage to chosen character or location, costs 2, it's inkable. Quite comparable to Fire the Cannons. It costs twice as much as Fire the Cannons, but it is inkable.
Yeah, I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it too.
It's like Fire the Cannons has seen play sometimes, but it being uninkable is such a huge downside. And just having this 2-cost deal 2, that's most of the usually you want to be dealing damage to characters because to locations you can attack anyways, but still it's a small upside that you can choose locations as target also. So it's kind of it's on the same weight as Smash, but it can target locations, and it's a little cheaper, which I think is very relevant. I think this card's pretty good.
Yeah, I like this card too. The Smash comparison I think is a very good one, and yeah, I think I like this card quite a bit actually.
Me too.
Airfoil, which is an item. Exert, if you've played 2 or more actions this turn, draw a card.
Huh.
I quite like this. The fact that it's uninkable is a big deal as well.
That it is inkable, yes.
Yeah, it's inkable rather.
Yeah, so maybe something like this is what items deck would need to actually have some sort of payoff for playing items. So just having this on the board, if you play 2 cantrips, 2 items that replace itself by drawing a card, then you're already going +1. I still, without having seen more of this item synergy, I don't expect this to see play, but this card is still decent.
Yep, I agree. Helga Sinclair, also a shift target, I believe. When this character is challenged and banished, banish the challenging character. So this card is quite comparable to Cheshire Cat from set 1, except Cheshire Cat quests for 2, whereas Helga Sinclair is a card that you're going to be wanting to quest with and only quests for 1. So I don't think she's particularly good.
But the cat was 3 cost, 03?
Yeah, 3 costs, but it quests for 2. This one only quests for 1.
Yeah, the thing is, it can only banish the challenging character, which means that this having strength doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't want to be attacking with this, it's not very good for that. Only when this is challenged, you can banish the challenging characters. So the damage that this deals when it's being challenged doesn't matter at all because the character is being banished anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not much different than this card having 0 strength and 1.
Yeah, it's got its stats in the wrong places, right? You'd rather it be like a 0/1 that quested for 2, for example.
Yeah, but still, it's a character that at least threatens some lore and can never be value traded. So it's still not that bad, but yeah, it's not great either.
Yeah, I don't like it. Okay, we have a standard 1/4, not going to see any play probably, but could be an option in Rockstar Stitch decks.
Yeah, the 1/4 stat line is usually worse than the 2/3.
Okay, this is a card I'm very interested to talk to you about, Moyen. It's Mr. Smee, Clumsy Sailor, ooh la la. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted while you do not have a captain character in play, deal 1 damage to this character. So it enters the board as a 3/3, and then the following turn you play it, you can quest with it, and then even if you don't have a captain character, it's then a 3/2 which quests for 2. So I think this card's good even without any captains, and if you happen to have a captain, this card is absolutely insane.
Wait, this quests for 2 and is a 3/3?
Yeah.
This I don't know. This card doesn't have any business doing both of those things.
Yeah.
Think if it quested for 1, it would still be decent. But this questing for 2, I think, makes it a very good card. Because your characters don't need to stay on the board for a million turns.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say if you're playing a deck with 0 captains, over 2 turns, this is still a 3/2.
Yep.
And then after that, because it won't be exerted on the first turn you play it.
Yeah, exactly.
So only on the second turn it takes the damage. So after 3 turns, it's like a 3/1. But still quests for 2. And if you play captains, it might just trade really, really nicely as well.
Yeah, I think this card's it's one of the best cards
very,
I've seen
very,
so far.
very good.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have Sir Hiss, which is a 3/1 evasive, which costs 2. So importantly, it's going to be able to trade with Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's nice.
Also, just being a 3/1 evasive that can quest for 1 each turn, and every evasive that wants to trade this, that's not hugely expensive, will probably die when challenging this.
Yeah.
So the only downside really is, okay, just dies to being touched by any action or Tinkerbell or AoE effect.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think this card's pretty good.
We have Skippy, which is a 2/2 with Ward. Not a very good card in my opinion. The Ward keyword, you want it to be protecting something which has got some kind of ability. This is just a below average stat line. This is a 1 cost 2/2 that just so happens to have Ward, which you just don't care about.
Yeah, it's the thing is, every time a character has a keyword on it, usually it's paying for that by how much it quests for or by the stat line. So this is a 2/2 because it has Ward. But Ward would only be good on a good character that would be worthwhile protecting. So a 2 cost 2/2 it doesn't matter that it has ward. It's not much different than just a normal 2/2/2. So it's bad.
Nutsy is a 2/3, so just unfortunately not going to be up to scratch. It's like a Simba without the bodyguard tag.
Mhm.
We have Touched My Heart, which is an inkable 2-cost action or song, and you can banish a chosen item. So it's very comparable to something like Benja or Beast, but in Emerald, an option of dealing with items. But of course, it doesn't put any stats on the board.
There's still an all-white tech card, because it's an inkable tech, which is always nice. I think it's okay.
Yeah, if you're not playing Steel and items are popular, it's going to be a nice option. But if you are playing Steel and Emerald, you're probably going to be playing Benja over this card.
Yes, I agree.
Genie, also a shift target, I do believe, which is a 2/2, which quests for 2. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this stat line. There's already Aurora, who does something similar in Sapphire and doesn't see any play currently. But I do think the Rockstar Stitch decks are going to be entering the meta in a big way. And having a character which quests for 2 that costs 2, if Emerald and if Sapphire Amber is a combo option, this card will see play in that deck, I think.
Yeah, I think it's an all-white card. Just any 2-drop that quests for 2 is pretty alright. Because it enables aggressive strategies.
We have Trigger, which is a 3/1, and your character's name Nutsy gain 1 lore. So I think this is a card which is going to be in the starter decks most likely and not going to see any play outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the effect's nice, but it's so... A lot of Lorcana effects are just so specific that they basically don't matter. And I think this is one of those.
Yeah. Okay, up next we've got Wendy Darling, which is a card I'm a huge fan of. It's very comparable to the Genie card we just looked at. Instead of having 2 strength, it has 1 strength and 3 willpower. So this is a character that you're wanting to quest with, and therefore you'd much rather have that 1 extra willpower rather than that 1 extra strength. And I think this card is going to see a lot of play.
Yeah, this is... For brewing aggressive decks, we even played LeFou from set 1 without using the LeFou effect. And this just has 1 extra willpower in comparison to that. So, and I think I like this card more than just the 2/2 with that quest for 2.
Agreed.
Because for these aggressive strategies, it's very important that your card has any strength. You don't want them to have 0, but also that they have high willpower, so it's more expensive for your opponent to actually remove this. It takes them more time, and you're getting closer to 20 in the meantime.
Yep. Okay, we have Pua, if that's how you pronounce it. When this character is banished, you may shuffle this card into your deck. So this is an ability which is bad in most decks because you wouldn't want this card back in your deck. But if you're playing a mill strategy, for example, you could then play a 60-card mill deck with this card because it's going to be adding itself back into your deck. Currently, mill decks, you have to tend to play more than 60 cards because otherwise you mill yourself. But this card can enable mill strategies and enable you to play a 60-card mill deck, which is something that is quite interesting. Outside of that, I doubt that it's an ability that you would want.
Yeah, it says you may shuffle this card, so it's basically just a 2/2.
May shuffle, okay. That actually changes a lot. This card is just better than the Genie card I was just quite high up on then.
Yeah, it's very slightly better, but technically it's better than the Genie.
Yeah. Wildcat's Wrench, which is exerting to remove up to 2 damage from a chosen location. So you can tap this once per turn.
Yep. Unfortunately, we had the luxury of revealing this card on the podcast.
Unfortunately.
So I already talked a lot about this card, and I think a lot of its issues lie in that locations won't be left up damaged that often. I think a lot of the times either they will be removed or not touched at all. Especially when they see it. You have a Wildcat's Wrench on the board.
Yep.
So I think it will just be too hard to actually get the incremental value out of this card that you want to be getting.
Makes sense. Okay, we have Lena Saberwing, who is a 1/3 with Rush in Quest for 1. No, thank you. We'd rather the stat line reversed. The 3/1 would, of course, be better with a character with Rush. You're looking to remove things. I mean, she can deal with Lilos and things like that, but yeah, not the stat line you're looking for with a Rush character.
Yeah.
We have Magicka Dispel, which is a 2/3. Again, it's just a Simba without the bodyguard keyword, so it's not going to see any play.
Yeah, probably not.
Strike a good match, which is a action song. Draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. Okay, I quite like the look of this.
So it's a little bit better than. I mean, it is a decent bit better than just drawing 1. Still, you're not netting card advantage out of this. All you're doing is cycling through a deck a little bit, which can still be okay on a 2-cost song.
Yep. Again, in an aerial deck, which I do think aerial decks at the moment. Again, we're very used to seeing Ariel, the singer, only played with steel. But as more songs enter the game, I can definitely see Ariel with different color combinations being an option. And this is a card you would absolutely play 4 of in a deck that's playing Ariel.
I don't think even you would necessarily be wanting to play this in an Ariel deck. I think I would want to be playing this in an item type deck with, for example, the card that said if you play 2 actions in a turn, then you may draw a card. So it's payoff for that. But other than that, I actually don't think the card's good enough for you to be playing it and putting it into a deck most of the time.
Okay. Interesting. We have Repair, which is an action. Remove up to 3 damage from one of your locations or characters. No thank you. It's not drawing us a card, and it's just way too niche and way too low impact.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that.
The Bare Necessities is a rare card, an action song. Chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards a non-character card of your choice.
Okay. This I'm putting in my Ariel deck.
Yeah?
Probably. Because I'm not sure. So it's also never card advantage, and if they don't have a non-character card in their hand, then you get punished very hard.
Very unlikely that's going to happen.
Sure. Because so there's locations, there's actions, there's items that you could be hitting. So I think it's a decent card being inkable and a song, and maybe helping you to combat stuff like key cards, whole new world, be prepared type stuff.
Yep, and if you're playing like Prince John, discard in Emerald, for example, it's a card you could consider playing in that style of deck as well.
Yeah, that deck would, I think, very likely want to play this.
Again, then you could potentially play Ariel with this kind of card as well, right? Like Ariel, Emerald, discard, Amber. I could kind of see something like that working.
Yep.
Okay, Forbidden Mountain we talked about the locations. We have Hee, which is an inkable 3/2. Once per turn, when this character moves to a location, each opponent loses 1 lore. I don't think that's going to be quite good enough. You're paying to move this card to a location.
You need to remind me on the exact location rules. If I have 2 locations, can I just move this back and forth a lot of the time each turn?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So let's say you have 2 I mean, I don't know. It's requires the stream scenario, but let's say you have 2 locations that both say you can move to it for 1, for 1 ink, and then you can just pay 1 a lot of the time just to reset your opponent's lore.
It's pretty interesting, right? And like a very slow control deck where you just want to deny your opponent from getting much lore at all early game. I could see
be an anti-aggressive tool, at least.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the base you wouldn't want the baseline 2 cost 3/2, but it's not that bad for this type of effect.
Yeah.
Still, the card's not great, but
yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely got some interesting utility, but I would agree it's not a very good card on average. Okay, I love this card. It's Simba Scrappy Cub. It is Pinocchio. And Pinocchio is pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
There's also
it didn't see that much play, right? The set, the Pinocchio.
Well, it didn't, but I think that's because aggro just in general is so scared of steel, and steel has got such a big meta share. I think also a lot of the top players don't like playing aggro because it does just lose to steel a lot of the time, and a lot of the top players are wanting to have more agency over that. But I do think that aggro is probably the most underrated deck from set 2, and this card is going to be very good for aggro decks, and I'm quite excited to give it a try. Also worth noting that Ruby Amethyst is already like a very good aggro combo because you've got Arthur, you've got cards like LeFou, so you can quest with Simba and then ready it with LeFou the next turn. I think this card could be very, very good.
And Ruby got a few more cards that reset your character. So yeah, there could be something there.
Minnie Mouse is a rare card, Singer 3, so that's important to sing Let the Storm Rage On, for example. Whenever you play a character with Bodyguard, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. Now, there's a lot of Bodyguards being added in this set, so a full-on Bodyguard deck is a possibility.
Yeah, it's just I don't value just healing 2 that much. So
Yeah.
I think this card will often be worse than the 1/2 Cinderella that's Singer 3.
Yep.
If
I think that's a fair comment. Magic Carpet, which is a 2/1 evasive, and you can exert it to move a character of yours to a location for free. Now, most likely, this ability you're only going to get to work one. Oh, it's evasive actually, right? I was going to say it's going to get removed in challenge, but the fact it's evasive, that is very interesting potentially. I like the look of this card for location decks. I think location decks, as we've talked about, are probably the most difficult ones to evaluate, but this card looks very interesting for a location deck. I like the look of it, I have to say.
Yeah, it's also a 2-cost 2/1 evasive. Isn't that bad?
Yep.
Just baseline. So it having also this location synergy. So against decks that don't deal with this very well, don't play evasives, don't play removal, you could just move one character to location for free each turn, which could be pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the final 2-cost card is the Lamp, which is an item. Banish this item. If you have a character named Jafar in play, draw 2 cards. If you have a character named Genie in play, return chosen character with cost 4 or less to their player's hand.
Mm-hmm. So if you have both in play, you're able to do both of these things, right?
I would assume so.
I think when this card draws 2, it's already good. If you do both, it's very, very good. If you only get to bounce a 4-cost or less, it's a little mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
So depending, I think if you can afford to play a lot of Jafars in your deck anyways, I think this card's very good. Because you don't have to play it in the same turn as the Jafar. You can just put down the Lamp, and at any point where you do play Jafar, draw 2 cards.
Yep.
So it's like a delayed 2-cost draw 2. And paying 2 resources to draw 2 is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Scrooge McDuck is a 1/3. Quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, you pay 1 ink less for the next item you play this turn.
That might be okay, maybe.
Yeah.
You could play like a 4-cost item on 3. Or you don't need to cheat out something. Maybe it's just saving this 1 resource for the cost of playing a 1/3 instead of better card. I think playing a 1/3 is still a big cost in comparison to a normal standard.
I actually don't like it that much.
Yep, me neither.
So we have Razul, which is an inkable 2-cost card, a 1/3. While this character has no damage, he gets +3 attack. So it's a 3/3, which quests for 1 initially. I'm not a huge fan of it, but a 3/3 stat line for a 2-cost is pretty good.
Yeah, I think it can be very good because it matters how much. Okay, so it's 3/3 initially, and I think that's where it matters the most. And then maybe because right now 2/3s are very meta relevant, and if they stay meta relevant, I think a character that can kill that and then
Banish,
leave
we
up
don't
a
use kill
1/1
in Disney, mate. Come on.
Yeah, banish it's 2/3, and I think it's kind of good because if you compare this to Prince Eric, which I know you're not a big fan of, but this can also banish 2/3s.
Yep.
But at the same time, you can quest with this without it being able to be traded into so favorably like Prince Eric can.
Yep.
Yeah,
so this
still
card is like a little bit better than Prince Eric, probably.
Yeah, so I think it's a good card.
Yeah. Kit Cloud Kicker. When you play this character, you may return chosen opposing character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. Wait, this card's kind of cool.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting. It's like a
It's
Mother Knows Best,
but yeah, on a stick. It's a Mother Knows Best on a stick, and that's not terrible. You can actually get tempo out of this. This is a card that you will need. I think if you're on the draw, this card's pretty bad, but on the play, it can be good. Your opponent plays the 2 drop, and you immediately go Kid Cloud Kicker, bounce it the turn after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like on a card like Flynn Rider, for example, like that kind of card, it's going to slow your opponent down a lot. And then
what does it cost?
3 cost 6/6.
3 cost 6/6?
Yeah. So Gustav the Giant is a 3 cost 6/6. This character enters play exerted and can't ready at the start of your turn. During your turn, whenever one of your other characters banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready this character.
Oh, really is a giant.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Very
I like big
card.
stats.
Yeah, I think this card's pretty cool. I think this might be good.
But it's only whenever one of your other characters. So even if you like ready this with another character and then this challenges the character because this character really wants to be challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then and only then you're getting value out of it, and then it doesn't like immediately unready.
It might be a bit too clunky, right? It's definitely an interesting design, though.
Yeah, I think it's probably too clunky, but yeah, I do like the design of the card. Found it.
John Silver is a inkable 3/3, costs 3. For each location you have in play, this character gains resist 1 and gains 1 lore. So it's a location card enabler. If you've got 2 locations, it's going to have resist 2, so essentially 5 willpower, and quest for 3, which would be pretty good. Truth be told, though, are you likely to have more than 1 or 2 locations on the board? Possibly not.
No, I think with 1 location this card's already good. So if you had like 1 location on the board on average, I think that would make this card good. It's just I don't really see that one.
Yeah, okay. So if locations are good, John Silver's probably a card you're putting in your deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I found it.
Okay. This Mickey Mouse is a 3/3, costs 3. Quest for 1. This character gets +1 attack for each location you have in play. Probably not very impactful.
Yeah, this is worse than the other card that also gets +1 resist.
Yep.
This only gets attack.
Yeah, this is
like
bad.
this only gets strength, and this is really, really bad.
Oh, okay. Wendy Darling is a 3/1 with ward, and she also has support. She quests for 2. Super rare card as well. So she's got a lot going on, but I'm not that huge on her overall. She's kind of doing lots of things in a mediocre way, but maybe support is a good keyword.
Having ward and questing for 2 is alright, because it means you often get to quest for 2 once.
Yep.
And then also have the support effect go off, but it's just, I'm not that impressed with support in general. And then it's still a 3/1, it still dies to any AoE, so I don't think the card's good.
Yeah, I agree. Certainly not for a super rare.
No.
Heal what has been hurt. Remove up to 3 damage from chosen character and draw a card. So it's a song that can draw a card, which I think is pretty important. There's also some healing synergies potentially in Amber as well. So this card could be okay in the right deck.
Yeah, but it's probably still not great.
Yeah. Another super rare, Pongo, which is a 3/2, quest for 1. Once per turn, you may pay 2 ink to reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. So probably not going to want to quest with this card because it's going to get removed very quickly. Unfortunately, it is going to be dying to cards like Fire the Cannons. But in the right deck, I think it's mainly aimed at like the Dalmatian deck, trying to flood the board. If you've got an abundance of ink and you just need more card draw, this could be pretty good. But I have to say I'm not huge on it overall.
Right, I think the card can be very good. It's the 2 willpower breakpoint is a little annoying, but this can, in a deck that plays mostly characters, they don't need to be puppies. It can just draw a card for 2 each turn.
Yep.
Why? Maybe you're not getting any other use out of the character for most turns, but at some point you would still quest with this, and they would still need to deal with this. So it's still not just pay 3 and then pay 2 each turn to draw a card. It still has this body attached to it, and I think that's can be very, very strong.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not huge on this card. I feel like it's going to be getting removed a lot. I can definitely see your argument. And I think a lot of people are going to be like looking at this card thinking, this card is amazing. I think this card's okay. That's my kind of take on it.
Sure. I guess it's still a bit expensive to draw the cards, but I think it can be like a complete nightmare to slower decks that will want to clear your threats. But then you just drop this Pongo, draw a card with it immediately, and they need to deal with it, but then you're already like 2 for 1 them. So I think it can be a very annoying card to deal with for slower decks.
Capnox, you have Floatsome. Your character's name Jetsam get +3 attack. And then we also have Jetsam, which is got ward and quest for 2. Your character's name Floatsome gain ward. I would imagine these are both starter deck cards and are not going to see any play outside of that.
Yeah, I think they both seem awful because the 5/2 is a terrible stat line. A 2/2 ward is terrible, and even together, your 5/2 with ward is still a 5/2.
Yeah.
And then they just let it crest once, okay, and still easily kill it afterwards.
Yeah, there's also some set 1 Floatsome Jetsam cards to add to the synergy, but Those cards also aren't great.
Yep.
Sumerian Talisman, which is an inkable item. During your turn, whenever one of your characters is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card.
I think this card's also really bad. Because for this to work, you need to... because it only happens during your turn, you need to be taking challenges where your characters die, which is usually something you don't want to be doing, and only then you get some sort of benefit.
Yeah, and it costs you 3 to play it initially. So you'd have to remove 2 cards this way in a challenge to draw 1 single card, right?
Yeah, no, but it's not just you have to remove 2. Yeah, you have to remove your own cards. Your characters need to be banished. So that's that. I think if it said every time on your turn you banish an opposing character in a challenge, I think it would be a lot better. But you don't want your characters to die in a challenge.
Okay, next, another super rare, Lyle Tiberius Roke. Well now, you know, when you play this character, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their turn. So when you play Lyle, you give one of your opponent's characters Reckless. And then whenever one of your other characters is banished, each opponent loses 1 law.
I think this card's extremely good.
Yeah?
Yeah, because it's the 3. Okay, it's uninkable, which is a high cost, but a 3 cost 2/4 is a very decent stat line, and giving something Reckless I think is very good because at the baseline at least it prevents one opposing character from questing, but also if you leave up any exerted characters, it might mean that they are forced to sacrifice their own characters, which is really bad for them. And I think the second part of this effect is also pretty significant, because let's say late game you can play this and maybe take these challenges that maybe usually you wouldn't want to be taking, but they also come with your opponent losing a lore each. Or after the first turn you play this, every character that they want to just challenge and banish that way, yeah, they will lose a lore for. I think this card has like a lot of different small parts that are all adding up to this being a good card overall.
I also think, if I'm not mistaken, this is a shift target as well, but I could be wrong on that.
Even without this being shift target, I think this card's really good.
Helga Sinclair, who has Challenger 2, so she could be a 4/4, which is a okay stat line, but probably not something you're going to be playing.
Yeah, it's like what's the card? Captain Hook? No, the 2 cost 1/3. Prince Eric.
Yeah.
It's like a Prince Eric that costs 1 more and has 1 more strength and willpower.
I'm not a big fan of Prince Eric personally either. It does see some competitive play though, but personally I'm not a huge fan. And I think this card's a little bit worse than Eric.
It's Prince Eric is a lot worse, I think, than Captain Hook, because suddenly you're paying 2 ink for a card that's mostly there to challenge, and you can hardly ever quest with it without running into bad trades. This having 2 strength makes that a little less likely to happen, but I think in general this card is like still a tool that can sometimes be okay if there's a lot of characters running around with 4 willpower. Or guest locations. It's okay.
Map of Treasure Planet. This one's very interesting. It's an item. You can exert it to pay 1 ink less for the next location you play this turn, and you pay 1 ink less to move your characters to a location.
Comparing this to Lantern, I think it also compares unfavorably, so I don't think it's very good, because I think most of the time you won't be cheating more resources than 1 a turn on average, even if it's possible, because it's very specific with the location thing. That being said, I think maybe it can enable some strong location synergies still.
Yeah, the fact that it's passive is you pay less to move your characters to a location. There are some cases where you could, you know, like this Hee, for example, if you want to move it multiple times, you could just move it between location, bounce it multiple times. It's definitely an interesting card. I think these location cards are very difficult to evaluate, but I do quite like the look of this one potentially. Although it is pretty expensive, it's slow, and that might be the downfall of this card.
Yeah, I guess the best application for this is being able to move something for free to a location, and but you also need a location where your character is better off. So a location with an effect.
Yeah.
Like maybe Maui's Place of Exile, where your characters gain resist +1. You can always immediately move it there. But for that, your location also needs to stick.
Yeah, and then you're playing a location, which is often slow. Then you're playing an item, which can be quite slow as well. And overall, I'm not convinced.
Yep.
Iago, which is an evasive 3/2, so this is very comparable to Fidget already in Ruby, which has seen some play as a meta card, meta tech card to deal with Mini Carefree Surfer, who I'm sure is still going to be played in many Ruby decks.
Yeah, so it's the same card in a different color. It can see play, but only for that specific purpose.
Queen of Hearts, a 3/3. Whenever this character quests, your other villain characters get +1 lore this turn.
So if this effect happens once, it's still a pretty bad card.
Mm-hmm.
If you can use it twice, so you get 3 lore out of this card in turn, then that starts being good. I personally don't think you will get 3 lore out of this card most of the time, or at least 3.
Yeah.
So I think this card's bad overall.
I agree. I think the other villain card, which has big villain payoff that we've seen, was Hades from set 1, which unfortunately is just not a good card, even with villain synergy particularly. And there probably isn't that much villain synergy. Maybe down the line, though, as more villain cards are printed, this card could become more of a contender.
Yep.
Rise of the Titans, which is a 3-cost banish chosen location or item. So this is very comparable to Benja, which is in steel and a very, very good card. But this can also remove locations. I don't think this is going to see play. I'd rather play Benja.
Okay, but I think this is still a nice tool to have as a tech card that works against both.
Yep.
Just in case there's some very high willpower locations that you want to be removing. So I think that the card's still decent.
Yeah. Hydros, which is exerting... Exert is the word, yeah. You can exert this card to exert a chosen character.
Yeah, I think that's pretty bad. That doesn't justify being a 3-cost 2/2.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to the Elsa in Amethyst, which doesn't see any play anyway. So
yeah, and I think the Elsa, even if it doesn't quest for 2, it might still be a better card just being a 3-cost 2/3.
Yeah, I agree. The boss is on a roll. This is an action song. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Put any number of them on the top or bottom of your deck in any order and gain 1 lore. So the key part of this really is the fact that it's gaining you 1 lore. Without that, it would be pretty bad. But Amethyst already has a lot of card draw, and this is giving you a lot of consistency and also gaining you lore passively. So it's kind of comparable to Merlin's Goat in that sense, where it's gaining you lore which cannot be interrupted. So I could see this card being okay, but it's definitely not something I'm convinced by.
Yeah, it's like most of the time I don't think you want to be paying an entire card for just 1 lore. Both Merlin the Goat and Merlin's Spellbook do a lot more than just giving a lore.
Yep.
And this also sets up your deck in a way, but I think that's a very minor part of this effect.
Yeah.
What I want to point out is that this deck has great synergy with the hat that we talked about earlier. What is it? The Sorcerer's Hat, where if you already have the Sorcerer's Hat down and then you see the top 5 cards of your deck and order them, then that means you can activate the hat this turn. Next turn you have a natural card draw, you can activate it again. And then natural card draw, you draw card 4 and can draw card 5 with the hat again. So it can enable 3 Sorcerer's Hat hits. And I think that synergy can be very powerful and make both of these cards potentially playable, even if they wouldn't be playable on their own.
Interesting. We have Dewey, who we talked about earlier. This card is not very good, unfortunately, and won't see any play.
Nope.
Dive Bomb. Banish one of your characters with Reckless to banish a chosen character with attack less than that character. This card has a lot of conditions you need to meet, and I don't think we'll see any play as a result.
It doesn't have to have all of these conditions. Even if it would just say banish one of your characters to banish chosen characters with less power, I think it would still be a bad card. But then also your character needs to have Reckless. That's just too much.
Yeah. Captain Took Rapier. During your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge, you may pay 1 ink to draw a card. And also, your character's name, Captain Hook, gain 1 plus Challenger. So the main part of this ability is during your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge, you may pay 1 ink to draw a card. And I have to say, I quite like it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. the Queen of Hearts has a similar effect, but we don't have to pay. But the thing is, Queen of Hearts is a character; it will be removed a lot easier than an item.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this can enable a lot of value in like a mid-range type deck.
Yeah, I like the look of it. And Captain Hook is already a good card. The 1-cost Captain Hook, so a 4 challenging for 4 with Captain Hook could also be very interesting.
Sure, that's also. I guess that's also a non-zero factor for the card.
Mm-hmm. Robin's Bow, another item, uninkable. Exert to deal 1 damage to chosen damaged character or location, and whenever a character of yours names Robin Hood quests, you may ready this item. Quite a lot of Robin Hood cards in this set, including, I believe, a legendary.
Okay. So it's an uninkable, and I think the effect's actually okay, but I don't know if it will justify you putting like an uninkable card into your deck just to ping off stuff that's you will need to damage before killing off.
I have a feeling this card might be very good in the right deck. I think like 1 damage ping each turn is very, very powerful.
Yeah, but it's only each turn if you put something to 1. You can never do it on something that's...
Yeah, so you do need to have something else. There's also like this 2-cost Robin Hood in Steel, which when you exert, it can deal 1 damage as well, so that could be a potential combo. And
yeah, I think this is... Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And then you've also got the option of potentially pinging this off twice if you have Robin Hood characters in your deck already.
Mm-hmm. I think this is basically a decent Emerald Steel card, but I cannot see myself just playing this in any deck. Because in Steel you have all these actions and effects that deal damage, and then you have Tinkerbell and Grab Your Swords. And for those effects, it's very nice to be able to deal that 1 last damage that you would otherwise be missing. But I think I wouldn't just put this in any Emerald deck.
Yeah. I think also there's a 1-cost Robin Hood in this set, which is in Steel, like a 2/2 as well, so it does seem like it's an Emerald Steel card.
And there's the 2-cost 1/3 Robin Hood that we already have. Yeah. Was it that deals 1 damage? It's pretty good with that as well.
Yeah, I like this card, I have to say. I think it's a cool one. Maui Winged Demigod. It's a 5/2 uninkable Reckless. Whenever one of your characters names he quests, this character gets +1 lore and loses Reckless for this turn. This card is so pants.
Yeah, I don't like how conditional, like how specific some conditions in Lorcana are.
Yeah.
That it could as well just say 3-cost 5/2 Reckless. This is uninkable. Crazy.
Yeah, it's uninkable. Okay, we've got a super rare up next. Aerial Adventurous Collector. She's evasive. Whenever you play a song, chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. It's very important. So if you've got like a card which is questing for a lot, let's just say, for example, Simba, the Lion Cub Simba we looked at before, which is questing for 3, being able to make that evasive is going to be protecting it for an extra turn because, yeah, your opponent is not able to challenge it probably until the start of your next turn. This is evasive itself. It's not able to remove Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer because it's only got 2 strength, whereas Minnie Mouse has 3 willpower. But I can definitely see this being an interesting card.
Yeah, so it could maybe enable this Ruby Amethyst or some type of Ruby aggressive deck that also like plays LeFou to keep the characters ready, that gives the characters evasive with this. It's just how many songs will those decks want to play is the only issue. But if they can already play some good songs in their deck, I think this card can be pretty good.
Yep, so maybe a Amber Ruby Aerial deck could be on the cards. Mm-hmm. We have Gyro Gearloose, which is a 1/4 quest for 1. You can exert it to put an item card from your discard to the top of your deck. So not into your hand, but to the top of your deck.
I don't think that's good enough at all.
Yeah, me neither.
Also, if you use this effect, that means for that turn the character's not questing either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very expensive.
Yeah, it's a no from me. We have Little John, which is a 2/4 bodyguard, which also reads, during your turn, this character gains evasive, which means they can challenge characters, your opponent's cards with evasive. Unfortunately, it's not able to deal with Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer, which I think is the most important part. But a 2/4 bodyguard is not terrible. There is already a 3-cost bodyguard in Steel, which has, what's the keyword?
Resist.
Resist, and I think that card is better than this one.
Yeah, and I think you don't. This being evasive is nice and all, but it doesn't want me paying 1 extra ink for 1 extra willpower in comparison to 2 cost 2/3 bodyguards either.
Peter Pan, which is a 1/3 with Rush. While you have a character named Tinkerbell in play, this character gets +2. So it can quest for 2. It's very comparable to a Rafiki, which is inkable, but only Rafiki when you have Tinkerbell in play. And I think it's just going to be too niche for that reason.
Probably yes, but 3 cost 1/3 rush that can also you can just play it for to quest for 2. No, it's probably still bad. It's kind of nice to clear up maybe one uninkable 1/1s that quest for 2 and then still have this character left up. But yeah, I think it's not bad.
Yeah. We have Milo, which is a 2/4 which quests for 2. Not the worst card, but probably not going to see any play.
Yep.
Okay, we have Jafar, who importantly. We're going to be looking at a Jafar card later on, which is a shift. So this is a potential very good shift target. When you play this character, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one on the top of your deck and the other at the bottom. And it's a 2/2, which quests for 2. So it's very comparable to the Genie card we looked at earlier, which is a 2 cost, except this also has the ability of you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, putting one at the top and one at the bottom when you play it. But the main reason to play this, I think, is the fact that it is a shift target for the Legendary Jafar we're going to be looking at later on.
On its own, it's bad, but as a shift target, it can be good. And also, if you're playing, I always forget the name, the hat. It can enable getting the hat off once.
Yeah. Sorcerer's, is it Sorcerer's Hat or something?
Yeah, Sorcerer's Hat.
Last ditch effort, an uninkable action. Exert a chosen opposing character, then chosen character of yours gains Challenger 2 this turn. So this is an uninkable card. If it was inkable, you would feel like a little bit more happy about having it in your deck as like a 1 or 2 of tech card. I think as an uninkable, it's going to be a little bit too awkward to be including reasonably.
Yeah, it doesn't compare very favorably, even in comparison to a card like Freeze, which is a really bad card.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the other card we revealed at podcast.
Oh, aren't you lucky?
Yeah.
Okay, Ursa, I've not seen this one yet. It's a rare uninkable 3 cost, 3/3 stat line quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't ready at the start of their next turn. I'm not huge on it.
Me neither, because it's uninkable, but it's not terrible, right? It's still kind of on weight for stats, and you can lock one of your opponent's characters from doing anything next turn. But yeah, I'm not too high on it.
The fact it's uninkable, it's uninkable, and I don't think its stat line is that impressive. If it quested for 2, for example, I'd be a lot more interested.
Yeah. So if this was inkable, it would be a decent card. I think like this is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Gizmo Suit, which is an item. Banish this item, and chosen character gains resist 2 until the start of your next turn.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, terrible.
We even had mouse armor in last set, which saw literally 0 play.
Mm-hmm.
Which could give something like resist
I
plus
actually
1
lost
each
to
time.
mouse armor in one of Tia's tournaments recently, rather embarrassingly.
Bit sorry for you. Actually, when I at the start I thought mouse armor could be a pretty good card, but it ended up not being that, and this card's so much worse than mouse armor.
Kakamora, which is an uninkable 3/2. When you play this character, each opponent loses 1 lore. Not doing enough for an uninkable, is it?
Yeah, not at all. We even have I think we even have some inkable cards already that say that have this type of effect where you play them. Yep.
We have Roly, which is a support pup 3/3 with 1 lore. Don't think it's good enough.
Yep, very bad.
We have Webby Vanderquack, which is a 3/4, which quests for 1, just too vanilla to be doing much in any deck. Pretty good stat line, though, to be fair.
Yeah, it's one of the better vanilla stat lines, but it's still a vanilla.
Maui's Fishhook, which is an item. If you have a character named Maui in play, you may use this item's shapeshift ability for free. And the shapeshift ability is pay 2 ink and choose 1. Chosen character gains evasive until the start of your next turn, or chosen character gets +3 this turn. So if you have a Maui in play, you can make a character of yours evasive each turn. So if there's a Maui that you would want to make evasive, you could just keep rinsing and repeating that part of the ability.
Yeah, so basically, also, you could just play the Rush Maui on 5 and maybe already be able to challenge an evasive.
Yep.
That's a nice application. Maybe if there was like an evasive Maui that would be very sticky, that would make this card a lot better because then you could use this effect for free each turn on something else. That being said, I think the card's quite expensive for what it provides.
It's worth noting the Jafar Legendary, which we're going to be looking at later, which is definitely like a meta warper, is an evasive with 5 willpower. So Maui being able to instantly challenge that evasive card once it's exerted, but more likely if you're playing Ruby, you're just going to be wanting to remove that with something like a Dragonfire or like a Maleficent Dragon. But, you know, maybe if you need this like on turn 5, it could see some meta play for that reason, just to deal with Jafar.
Yeah, I guess what's worthwhile pointing out is that I don't think this card will be used as much to be aggressive on yourself and protect your character. I think it will mostly be used to actually make your character evasive so it can challenge an evasive character.
Yeah. Wildcat, which is a 2/3 quest for 1. It has evasive, or you can exert with it to banish chosen item. This card doesn't seem very good. If it was a 3/2, then again it would see more play because it could deal with Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer. As it is, I just don't think you would pick this card.
I don't think it's too bad.
I guess banish chosen item as an evasive. It's not likely to get removed instantly.
Yeah, so if there's any item-heavy decks, or even decks that rely on just a few items, I think this can be a very good counter against it because you just exert it, banish a chosen item, and what's your opponent going to do if they don't have access to evasives? They either need to remove it, or they're just not allowed to play items again for the rest of the game.
My problem with this card, though, compared with Benja as well, and I do think Benja is a very good card, and it's difficult to compare any card to Benja, is Benja is removing an item instantly, whereas Wildcat, you're having to wait a whole turn. So your opponent sees the Wildcat coming, and then they can perhaps use that item if it's, you know, an item that reads banish this item after use. Like, your opponent sees it coming, it's quite slow for that reason, and I'm not a huge fan of it overall.
It's just, I don't think this is better than Benja by any means. It's just, it even has some conditions under which it could be better than Benja, but it does it multiple times, and it's in a different ink color. So
Benja's very, very good. So
yeah, and having item hate in different colors than steel will be an important tool in case we need it.
Okay, Legendary Ursula. 2/3. Whenever this character sings a song, you may play that song again from your discard for free, then put it on the bottom of your deck. So the main target for this that comes to mind for me is Let the Storm Rage On, which is dealing 2 damage rather, and drawing a card. So you could sing that with Ursula, and you play it again, and then you put it at the bottom of your deck. Like, sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, so if this sings Let the Storm Rage On, you can deal 2 twice, draw two cards. And if this sings Friends on the Other Side, you can just draw 4. So I think both of those applications have pretty good potential.
Yep, and it's an inkable card as well.
Yeah, I think this card's pretty good.
Mami Odi, which is an uninkable 1/3 quest for 1. Whenever you play a song, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exert it.
I think this card's terrible.
Yeah, it's comparable to a Mickey Mouse, for example, right? Mickey Mouse
it's just the condition.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse is gaining you like that 1 ramp instantly the turn you play it. Whereas Mami Odi is you're going to have to wait a turn to achieve anything. So on turn 4...
Unless maybe you can play it and already sing a song with like your 2 cost. Or...
Yeah, that's true.
But I think again... I think you would much rather have the consistency of a Mickey Mouse than having to meet this condition just to sometimes be able to do it multiple times.
I agree. We have Baloo, which is an uninkable bodyguard, a 0/3. When this character is banished, gain 2 lore. Pretty interesting. Definitely for an aggro deck, this is something that you're going to be wanting to play. The fact that it's gaining 2 lore when banished, you can quest with it, and then it's probably going to get removed pretty quickly, but that's 3 lore. It's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's a decent card for aggressive decks. I'm not surprised you like it.
Yeah, I do love my aggro decks.
Huh. But I don't know. It's still 0 strength, but it's whenever this is banished, not just when it's banished in a challenge.
Yep.
So I think it can. It's a somewhat similar to how Amethyst can threaten lore without you being able to do much about it. Unless you like put this into the Inkwell with Hades or. But I think most of the time this will net you some lore, so I think it's a decent card for sure.
Yeah, I like it. I can see why it's uninkable.
Mm-hmm.
A magic broom card. When this character is at a location, it gets +2 attack. Bad.
Yes, agreed. Can be a 3/5 at a location. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
The Queen. She's a 4/3. Not really much to say about that. Lovely artwork, but not doing much apart from that.
Nope.
Captain Amelia is a 1/5. During your turn, this character gains evasive. That's not really doing much for you, seeing as she only has 1 strength.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of evasive characters she will be able to banish.
Pluto, a 3/4 vanilla card. Not going to see any play.
Yep.
Heart of Tefiti, which is a 3-cost item. You can exert it and pay 2 ink to put the top card of your deck into your Inkwell face down and exerted. So you could play this card on turn 3, and then on turn 4, spend 2 of your ink and start ramping. I think it's a bit too expensive.
It is slow ramp, but I think if you can manage to survive while ramping with this, you will be able to ramp every single turn. And I think still you will have enough with 60 card deck. Even you will have enough deck size to do this a lot of the time without really worrying about it.
This card is kind of like a worse version of Fishbone Quill, but you can only really play Fishbone Quill with Steel because of A Whole New World. So this is a card which you could maybe play in a Sapphire deck if you're not looking to play Sapphire Steel.
Yes, Quill is extremely good with Whole New World, but in any other deck you wouldn't really be able to just turbo ramp with Quill. Or it's a lot harder to do that because then you're sacrificing your hand size, but this is a way to ramp without sacrificing hand size, and that multiple times. So I still see potential in the card, although I do admit it is very slow.
Very slow indeed, yeah. Peter Pan, this is a starter deck cover art card, which is a 3/3. Once per turn, when this character moves to a location, gain lore equal to that location's lore.
That card's turbo expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive, isn't it?
I don't like it. 4 costs 3/3.
Yeah.
I guess you can gain some immediate lore by just moving it somewhere. But I don't think it's good enough.
Oh my goodness, this card is ridiculous. It's a 4-cost uninkable. Deal 5 damage to chosen character or location, and it's a song as well. So this is going to be a huge meta card. At the moment, we're seeing so many cards with 5 willpower. Cards like Beast in Steel, for example, and this card is able to deal with cards like that in a very efficient way.
Yeah, so far, most damage actions we have don't deal more damage than what they cost. This does that while being a song, which more than makes up for it being uninkable.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm also extremely high on this card. I think this card's very, very strong. Even some very expensive characters don't really have more than 5 willpower. There's some on 6 as well, but even like Maleficent the Dragon is also just 5 willpower.
Yep.
So this can 1-for-1 easily a lot of cards that would otherwise maybe be very annoying to deal with, or something like the Beast that draws cards. But this can also banish some characters that are a lot more expensive than just 4 ink.
Yeah, this card's going to be all over the place.
Agreed. This makes Ember Steel even better.
Yeah, definitely. Prince Eric, which is a super rare 4-cost uninkable 2/2, quest for 2. When this character is banished, you may banish chosen character. So this card kind of reminds me a little bit of Lady Tremaine, except you don't have as much flexibility over it because Lady Tremaine, the 6-cost that is, you can remove cards from your opponent's board and then play her. So Prince Eric, to get the most value with it, you're going to be wanting to remove him during your own turn, because otherwise your opponent's going to have control over what's removed. Like they could play like a 1-cost card and then remove your Prince Eric, and then you get to choose what character it is.
Yeah, you get to choose. And I think this card's very interesting and not that easy to evaluate
Yeah.
because it is non-inkable and the stat line is very underwhelming, but every time this gets banished, or almost every time, you will be able to banish a decently sized character because you also choose when you play this, and
Yeah.
you might just, instead of removing your opponent's cards, you might just play Prince Eric and say, okay, I'm just going to raise you, but you will have to remove my Eric, and that will slow you down in return, and I might just be able to keep putting my foot on the gas pedal. So I think this card can be alright. It's just, I think this card's one of the hardest cards to evaluate. Even if it's
This
not
card
super
kind of gives
complicated.
me like Cheshire Cat vibes, but better, right? So Cheshire Cat, like your opponent can decide what card is banished, whereas with this, you're choosing which of your opponent's cards is getting banished.
Yeah.
It's questing for 2, which is a decent amount.
Yeah. With Cheshire Cat, often they put it on like low willpower and then finish it off with like a very inexpensive character. But that's not an option against Prince Eric. So
yeah, and also if Prince Eric is removed by something like Grab Your Sword, he's still able to banish something. It's not just in a challenge. Yeah, I quite like it.
agreed.
Heart of Atlantis. This is very comparable to Lantern. It's a 4-cost uninkable. You can exert it once per turn and pay 2 ink less for the next character you play this turn. So that's obviously better than Lantern in the sense that it's reducing the cost by an extra ink, but it's obviously coming down 2 turns later. Important to note with this card, the turn you play it, you can exert it instantly. So you could play Heart of Atlantis on turn 4 and then a 2-drop as well on the same turn.
Which is still losing you some tempo in comparison to just playing a 4-drop on 4. And I think that tempo loss will be higher than the Lantern tempo loss where you just play a 1-drop on 2. So I don't know. I still see some value in this card, especially if there's some very impactful 7-drops that you will then be able to play on turn 5. But also, again, like Lantern was, it can be a card that's very good for Whole New World, where you can play this to dump your hand very quickly, then play Whole New World and have access to more resources than your opponent.
Yep. I think this card's decent, but pretty niche.
Yep.
Bernard or Bernard, which is a 1/5 quest for 2. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready another chosen character of yours. Oh my goodness, is this finally Christopher Robin time? Probably not.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty bad card. It's a 1/5 that doesn't do anything on play. And not only that it doesn't do anything on play, for it to do anything, it needs to stick, but also kind of another character needs to stick, or you need to play a Rusher next turn so that this effect actually does something at the end of your next turn.
I actually quite like this card. I think this card's pretty good.
Really?
I think this card's pretty good. And like aggro decks generally don't want to go much above 4 or 5 ink. And you could ready a card which is questing for a lot, like a Simba or a Pinocchio or something like that, which gets you like some extra quest potential. It's pretty difficult to remove. It's questing for 2, which is a decent amount. I actually think this card's not bad at all. I quite like it.
Maybe I was a little too harsh on it, but still in that scenario, aggressive decks, I think they already want to be questing with all their characters the turn you play this. So then your opponent has both the option to remove all your characters except Bernard, or just remove Bernard for this effect to not do too much. Maybe I was a little too harsh on it at first, but I still don't think the card's great.
5 willpower is not that easy to remove on turn 4 either, right? Like obviously it's malleable, but
and then along came Zeus.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Wow.
But that card's insane. Most cards will die
too.
to it.
Zeus. Wow, that was good. Good job. Your location, Vault Door. Your locations and characters at locations gain resist 1. This seems pretty terrible for a 4-cost card.
Yes, that's a huge cost, and it's still, even if it didn't cost that much, an entire card for this type of effect, I don't think is great.
Yeah. Shenzi, this is a hyena, I assume. Actually, yeah, it does have the hyena tag. So this is one of the cards Rafiki can maybe deal with. I can't remember exactly what Rafiki was doing with hyenas, but it had something to do with hyenas.
It doesn't take damage if it challenges a hyena.
Oh, this has 0 attack. Uh-oh. So this is questing for 1. It's a 0/6. When this character is at a location, she gets +3 attack. And when this character is at a location, when she challenges another character, you may draw a card.
So this is one of the first cards that is actually really powerful if in conjunction with locations.
Yep.
Right. It's just, so far we didn't like. It seems like we didn't value all these locations cards super highly, so I don't know if this is enough reason to make me want to play locations. But assuming that I am playing locations in my deck, this card can be very good. I guess the weakness again is what if even if I have a location, okay, I guess I can move it there, challenge something, already draw a card, and it's probably good enough. But it's just okay. They might be able to just remove the location and then still attack my 0/6.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not huge on this card. I think it's like pretty mid.
Still, yes, I mean neither, but still, it's kind of one of the best location payoff cards that we've covered in this.
Mm-hmm. We have Lithos, which is a 4/1 with resist 2, and you can exert it, and chosen character gains resist 2 this turn. Now, this turn doesn't include your opponent's turn, right? So it would just be during your own turn.
Mm-hmm.
But this is essentially a 4/3, which is a pretty decent stat line with some flexibility. I don't think it's going to be good enough, though, to see play.
Yeah, but this will only see play in a meta where maybe people are very bad at dealing 3 damage and they're very good at dealing 1 or 2. And then suddenly this like somewhat invincible against those cards.
Mm-hmm.
Because when this takes 2 damage, it just doesn't take any damage. So it can be better than a 4/3. But I think if there's any instances of 3 damages, this is still lackluster.
Yeah, and the fact that it's not giving your cards resist 2 during your opponent's turn, I think, is the big problem with it.
Yeah, I don't care too much about the effect. I just look at this as a 4/1 resist +2.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be okay under the right circumstances, but probably not.
Louis, again, we've covered these cards. Pretty terrible. Not going to see any play.
Yep.
Joshua Sweet the Doctor. It's a 1/5 bodyguard, which can quest for 2. So, unfortunately, not particularly good. Quite a bit worse than Simba. And I think as a result, it's probably the worst bodyguard we've looked at so far. 4 cost is quite late for a bodyguard to come down. You want them to kind of come down on turn 2, turn 3. So, I don't think this is any good.
And if they come down this late, I would want to have them like goofy stat lines like 3/6.
Yeah.
Okay, not on a 4 cost, but I think 1/5 is just too underwhelming.
Yeah. I think this might be the first bodyguard which quests for 2, though.
Yeah,
So
maybe.
that's something worth considering. Maybe it's not as bad as we're saying them, because often the problem with bodyguards is while they're protecting your stuff, they also slow you down in terms of questing. This is at least as a card which is protecting your cards while also getting some quest value itself. The Firebird, which is a 6/2, is that good?
It's awful.
Oh, why?
But if there's a lot of 6 willpower locations in the meta, then we can Firebird them. But that's in a different dimension.
Yeah. We have Mickey Mouse, which is a legendary card, a 0/1 uninkable, costs 4 of course, and you can exert it and spend 2 ink to play a character for free. So most likely, you're only going to be able to do this once because it's going to be removed instantly, unless you pair this with some kind of card which is readying a character. Is this ability good? You're basically paying 6 to play a card for free.
It's 6, but also you're still using 2 cards, like the card you play and Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
And so the power of this comes from, on let's say turn 5, being able to play something very expensive. So far, we didn't have something that I think would make this effect worthwhile, because even the most expensive cards in the game are not that impactful by being cheated out early that I would want to play this. And then also this has the weakness of maybe the times that you don't even get to do this effect once, or that you draw this card and don't draw a very expensive card.
Yeah.
So I don't think this card's good. I think this card's bad.
I think this is one of the worst legendaries from the set, actually. A lot of the legendaries this set are pretty good, but this is not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff of Nottingham, uninkable 4-drop, 2/4. It's a super rare quest for 1. Whenever you discard a card, you may deal 1 damage to opposing chosen character. That seems pretty flipping good with a whole new world.
So with whole new world, for every card I discard, I may deal 1?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good interaction. It's probably needed interaction to make this card good. But yeah, with that, it is very good.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. Slightly.
Okay, let's say a whole new world wouldn't exist. Is this
Okay.
card good enough to make you want to play? Or because Steel has these like draw 1, discard 1 effects.
Mm-hmm.
would you be wanting to play these together? Like there's, for example, the Simba 1-2, let's say
I
on
probably
play,
would
draw one,
consider it
discard
if it
one.
wasn't in Steel. Steel already has a lot of other ways of controlling the board, right?
Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Slightly, if you have a character named Peter Pan in play, you pay 1 ink less to play this character, and it's an evasive. No, not good enough.
Yep.
Cost
Even
3, yeah. Like this is like very comparable to Fidget, which costs 3 and can deal with Carefree Surfer. It's going to be better than Fidget when you have Peter Pan in play, which is not going to be that often, I would wager.
Yeah, but 4-3 evasive would be very good stats, right?
Yeah.
Just yeah, it depends on how many really good playable Peter Pans we're playing in this deck as well. So, and because for 4, it's just, I guess sometimes even the 4 cost 3/3 evasive in Amethyst was played as evasive hate in the recent sets, but I think we're like moving out of that power level with every set that's coming.
Okay, we have Cubby, Mighty Lost Boy, a 3/5. Whenever this character moves to a location, it gets +3 attack this turn. This is not going to see play. I believe it's a starter deck card.
Yeah, I doubt this will see play there.
Patch, which is a 3/4, and it can be exerted, and chosen character gets -2 attack until the start of your next turn. Bad.
Yeah. It's just, these cards, they pay so much in stats for an effect that's often worse than questing.
Yeah. Flintheart Glomgold, which is a 3/4 quest for 2. During your turn, this character gains evasive, so it's able to deal with Minnie Mouse Carefree Surfer, for example. Not the worst card I've ever seen, but I think Sapphire already has access to Cruella, which is a 2-cost card, which has 3 strength and can remove Carefree Surfer, and I think that's going to be a better option than this card.
Yeah, also this card would really like to just have evasive
Yeah.
instead of just being an evasive challenger and then dying on the follow-up.
Yeah. We have Magicka Dispel, 3/4, quest for 2, and she can be exerted to return chosen item with cost equal or less to this character's attack to its player's hand. So you can return a item with 3 cost or less to a hand, but you would have to exert this card in order to do that instead of questing for 2. Doesn't seem very good to me.
Not awful, I guess, but it's like essentially can draw you a card that you get to choose, but under the condition that it's already in your discard pile. And it is quite understated, and you need to rest it to be doing this, and then it's just like that the next turn. Yeah, it's probably not good enough.
Yeah. We have an uninkable Tinkerbell, so you cannot ink this Tink. She's a 1/4, quest for 1. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a character card and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Interesting. The stats on this card are definitely underwhelming. A 1/4, which is quests for 4. But you're playing her and putting a card in hand instantly, so she's replacing herself, and that's pretty powerful already.
Yeah, 1 for the quest for 1, not for 4, unfortunately. But I don't know. So I don't want to be comparing this card to Ariel, but it does similar things just for characters. Because Ariel is insane, and it doesn't need to be as good as Ariel to be playable. But Uninkable and the stat line is a little bit rough because it kind of searches for a character, which I think in most decks you won't miss a lot with this. So it is better than drawing a card, but by how much is it better? Is it because if it's just said for Uninkable 4 cost 1/4 that quests for 1 when you play this draw card, I don't think it would be good enough, and it's not much better than that.
So I think the card we should be comparing this to is the 4-cost uninkable Hades from set 1, right? Because they cost the same amount, they're in the same...
Yeah, and they give you a card.
Same ink color, they do pretty similar things, but I would have to say I would rather play Hades on average than this.
Yeah, I guess the Hades stat line is maybe a bit worse than... Like 3/2 is maybe a bit worse than 1/4, but it's very similar, and you have a lot more agency about your Hades. That's... This card is okay, but I don't think it will see that much play.
We have Chief 2, a 3/4, which quests for 2. Not going to be good enough, just 2 vanilla.
Yep. It's not even... It's like worse than vanilla. In comparison to the 3-cost 3/3 with Vanillas that quest for 2, you pay 1 extra for 1 extra willpower.
Yeah. No thanks. We have a Gramma Tala here, 4-cost 3/3, quest for 1. When you play this character, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may put 1 in hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck. Very lackluster stat line, and her ability is not powerful enough to compensate for that.
Yeah, but it is a 3/3 in comparison to the other one being a 1/4, and it's inkable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this card's better than the Tinkerbell we looked at. So it's okay.
Which Tinkerbell? The
1/4.
I guess, yeah. I guess that's true. You are putting one in your... yeah, okay. I underestimate this card. You're actually putting a card in your hand instantly.
Yeah.
I thought it was just kind of putting one on top, one on the bottom. Yeah, okay, so it's better than I'm giving it credit for.
Yeah. It's probably still a bit too slow, but it is okay.
We have Moana, which is a 3/4 evasive. Again, you kind of want this card to be costing 3. You'd rather play Fidget than this card, most likely.
Yeah, I agree.
We have a super rare Genie, which is uninkable 3/5, quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, you may shuffle this card into your deck to draw 3 cards. That's a curious ability.
Huh.
This has got a very impressive stat line. I don't really like the card though that much.
Need 1 second. I missorted the cards.
Sure.
So we're at Genie, right?
Yeah. Genie supportive friend.
I guess even the Moana. It might be better than Goofy if you just want like evasive hate. But okay, let's go to the Genie. 4-cost 3/5 uninkable. It's like drawing 3 is a lot of cards.
Yeah.
It is delayed in comparison to the turn you're playing this. You can only draw 3 the turn after you play this, but at the same time, you're also gaining 1 lore. And let's say your opponent might want to remove this so you don't draw the 3, but you're fine with that if they have to remove a 3/5 that's unexerted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the one very expensive card that's like has synergy with drawing cards. For that, it can be good maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That we'll look at it later, but in general, I think the card's still okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm actually not huge on it. The more I'm looking at it, like you're spending 4 ink to play it, you quest with it, and then you draw. You're paying like 4 ink for 1 lore and 2 card draw, right?
Yeah, for 2 extra cards,
Yeah.
but they're also delayed.
If
and there's no board presence. It can be slow.
If it was in a different ink color, it would be very good. But I feel
Yeah,
like
because
Amethyst might not care about this card enough.
Yes, because some ink colors have such little draw that they would really want this, but Amethyst might have more efficient card draw.
Treasure Guardian, which is a 6/6 quest for 2. This character can't challenge or quest unless it's at a location.
Yeah.
Seems too bad to me.
I don't know. The 4-cost 6 kicks is a lot of stats, and it can't challenge or quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's not great.
And it's uninkable.
Yeah, but like it's another card that if you're like wanting to play locations in your deck already could actually be pretty okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a card that makes me okay, for this card I really want to play locations.
Yeah. We have Friar Tuck, which is a 2/4 quest for 2. When you play this character, the player or players with the most card in their hand chooses and discards a card. Kind of awkward because there's going to be cases where if you're playing like a discard deck and you're trying to discard cards from your opponent's hand, you're going to be just, not actually able to discard a card from your opponent's hand with this. But it does quest for 2. It's kind of okay, but I feel like it's not good enough.
Yeah, also the condition is in such a way where you have to discard a card, right, if you're the one with the most cards in it. So I think that's a little bit too awkward.
Yeah, because you're also the second you play this card, you've got 1 card less in hand as well, right? So you'd almost want to be playing this on turn 5 before you ink a card, rather than on turn 4 at the turn you ink a card.
Yeah, the condition might be a lot easier to meet on turn 5 than on turn 4.
I don't think it's good enough.
Yep.
Starlight Vial, which is an item, uninkable. You may exert it and pay 2 ink less for the next action you play this turn, as well as you can pay 2 ink, banish this item, draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. The second part of the ability is not particularly... You pay 2 ink to draw a card, basically, and you can pay 2 less ink for the next action you play this turn. I think this is too expensive for what it's doing.
Yeah, the only way this would be good is if, like, you have some sort of payoff for playing these cantrip actions each turn. I think that part of the effect is the one with the most potential, but I also don't see it doing all that much.
On your feet now, which is an action, uninkable, ready all your characters and deal 1 damage to each of them. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. That seems pretty bad, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I agree. So they could at least, like, double quest. Maybe that would be too strong, but
Yeah.
I don't really feel like... I don't know. No, you need to... The thing is, this card is designed around doing it to your entire board. So for this card to actually get enough value, you need to have a huge board, and that's just not very easy to do if your opponent's also playing the game.
If your opponent's also playing the game, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's
Most
bad
opponents are usually playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, up next we have the Queen, which is a 2/5 quest for 1. Whenever this character quests, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. That's just not doing enough.
Yeah.
You can't put them on the bottom, so it's not giving you any thinning.
It's another synergy piece for the Sorcerer set if you want to play Amethyst Sapphire.
Nah, this card's terrible. I hate it.
Okay.
Okay, Lucky, which is a 2/3. This is a one-off copy in the starter deck as well. It's an uninkable. You can exert it and reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put each character card with cost 2 or less into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. And whenever this character quests, if you have 4 or more other characters in play, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. This card seems kind of insane.
Really?
I think so. In the right deck, obviously it's aimed at the puppy deck, right?
Yeah, and the puppy deck is not playable, from what I see. But maybe there's like still a deck that can use this to play a lot of small characters.
All your other characters get +1 lore this turn. So if you've got a Rockstar Stitch deck and you've got 4 cards down on the board, each of them gets 1 extra lore. That's kind of insane.
Okay, but then you need 4 characters on the board that can all quest and all survived, and Lucky also survived.
Yeah. But that's like the game plan of the deck. I think this in a Rockstar Stitch deck can pop off. I like it. You're not convinced.
I think it wants to play, but it's not terrible. It's just a 4-cost uninkable 2/3.
This is very much a card which goes into one kind of deck, which is a Rockstar Stitch deck. And I do think that this is the time for Rockstar Stitch to thrive. I've never been a big fan of that card, but I think this could be the time.
Even if it is the time, I don't know if Lucky will actually find its way into the deck.
I think you're underestimating how flexible this card is. This card's kind of insane to me. The part of the ability I like is Puppy Love. Whenever this character quests, if you have 4 or more other characters in play, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. That's like 4
imagine Lucky wouldn't have this effect and like quest for 2. Maybe quest for 3.
Quest for 3? Yeah.
Quest for 3 would, I guess, be good. But I don't know. I don't think we get enough out of this Puppy Love.
I like it. I like it. How Far I'll Go is an uninkable song. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand and the other into your inkwell face down and exerted. This seems pretty damn good, no?
Yeah, so it's 1 into the hand, the other 1 into the inkwell exerted. So it's basically lets you ramp without reducing your hand size. So again, could be good in a like non-whole new world ramp Sapphire deck. So Sapphire without steal probably. And it's a song. This makes cards that can sing for 4 very good. If you have any singer 4 cards, I think that those will go incredibly well with this card. Yep. So it's not easy to take your entire turn 4 off, but if you can sing this, I think I'm very happy.
I hate it. Eeyore.
That's fine.
I love Eeyore. This card is a 4/5 with resist 1, so it's kind of like a 4/6. Kind of comparable to Cerberus from set 1, which was seeing some play back in set 1. Most likely not going to be seeing any play, but great to see EO in the game. And Resist is a pretty damn good keyword. For a card that might want to be singing songs, the 5-cost songs, it's not a bad option, but most likely there's better cards than it. But if you're playing on a budget, this is really not a bad card.
Yeah, I don't know how often it will be much better than Cerberus, the 5/6 vanilla, but it can still be okay if it can clean up some small things.
Jim Hawkins, the legendary card. This is the location enabler. When you play this character, you may play a location with cost 4 or less for free. And whenever you play a location, this character may move there for free. So you play Jim Hawkins, you play a location which costs 4 or less for free, and he can move there instantly for no cost at all. It has 4 attack, 4 defense, and quests for 2.
Yeah, so I think this, if locations are playable, this seems like the reason why.
Yeah.
This card's incredible, I think.
Agreed.
So its stats would be comparable to a 4-cost, I think. Just a 4-cost for quest for 2 would like be a little bit below weight for 4-cost, so a little bit less than 4-cost. But still, you're paying 5, you're getting like a 4-cost body and a 4-cost character, hopefully. 4-cost location. And then also you can move a character there for free. You're just stealing resources from this, which is inherently strong.
Yeah.
The only problem is, I guess, you have to play locations, and you're like, but this is an extremely good card. This is one of those cards where it's not like, okay, if I play locations, this card's good. This card's so good. Maybe I want to play locations just because this card exists.
Yeah, and I think when we're evaluating the locations and saying like, oh, this card doesn't look great, this kind of explains why. They're almost balanced with this card in mind, right? Like, the location, you're playing locations which are below average, but you get a huge payoff like this in your top end. Okay, up next we have Moana, Born Leader, who has Shift 3. She's a 4/4 quest for 2. Whenever this character quests while at a location, ready all other characters here. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. I'm not too impressed with Moana because you're still having to pay to move her to a location. And you're going to have to pay for all the other cards to move to that location as well.
Yeah, I have to pay 5 to play her, then pay to move her somewhere, then pay to move the other characters there. And then it needs to stick, and then you quest just to ready them up again.
Yeah.
I'm not there for it.
We have Scrooge McDuck, which is an uninkable 3/5. During your turn, this character gains Evasive. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play an item for free. And there's a very expensive item, a 7-cost item we're going to be looking at in a little bit.
So, I think this card as just evasive hate's not that good enough. So it needs to be evasive hate, but also at the same time you want to be playing some rather expensive items as a payoff for this type of effect.
Yep.
But under the right circumstances, it can do powerful things.
99 Puppies. Whenever one of your characters quests this turn, gain 1 lore. So if you have 5 characters on the board, this is going to get you 5 lore instantly. I think it's not going to be quite good enough as an uninkable card. However, it could surprise your opponent. If you've got a bunch of cards down on the board and you just slam 99 Puppies, you might get across the finishing line when your opponent is not expecting it.
This reminds me of the terrible card that you had in your deck when we played the very first Lorcana pre-release event at Gamescom. It was like an uninkable 5-cost item in Emerald where whenever one of the characters quests, your opponent loses a lore. This is better than that card, but I think it is still pretty bad.
Yeah. I could see it as like a one-off card, maybe in a Rockstar Stitch deck, but probably
I can't see it.
Then. If it's ever seeing play, it's like as a one-off surprise value card. I don't actually think it would be that bad as a one-off in the right deck.
I think it will be.
Yeah, probably. Simba. All the steel Simba cards suck, so hopefully this one's different. It's a 4/6. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, chosen opposing character can't challenge during the next turn. Oh, look, another terrible Simba card in steel. Yeah. What's that all about?
We have to disappoint you. I don't know why all Simba cards in steel are so bad, but this is also terrible. It's understated, doesn't quest for a lot, and the effects are underwhelming.
I think you've got a legendary or a super rare Simba
if you do this.
Still to come.
Okay.
In steel, so you know it's bad, probably. 5-cost Inkable Tink, 3/4, quest for 2, super rare. Whenever one of your items is banished, you may put that card into your inkwell face down and exerted. So this could be good with Popsicle. The problem is that you often want to ramp early, whereas you're going to have to start ramping on turn 5 with this. But you could play Tink on turn 5 and then banish your Popsicles, for example, and then start ramping quite quickly with her.
Yeah, I think it comes down too late. But if you draw a lot of Popsicles and maybe like you hyper ramp on 5, it could be good occasionally. But I think you don't want to be ramping that late.
Agreed.
Under those conditions.
We have Audrey Ramirez, who's a 2/5 quest for 2 with Ward, and whenever this character quests, ready one of your items. Not sure that's really doing enough.
I think this card's okay because it having Ward as a 2/5 the quest for 2, it means it will quest for 2 once, like almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it does that, it has this item payoff, which I'm not quite sure how good it is yet, but if we can get value out of this item payoff, I think this card can be good.
Mm-hmm. Friend Like Me, which is an action song. Each player puts the top 3 cards of their deck into their inkwell face down and exerted. So you're ramping, but so is your opponent. Probably not that good, but certainly interesting.
Yeah, it's like it is ramp, but it's symmetrical, and it's even not completely symmetrical because your opponent will be the first one to be using the extra resources, and that doesn't seem like something you want to be doing. No. That being said, maybe you can get more value out of the ramp than your opponent because your opponent's not built in a way where they can use all those resources, while you can build your deck in a way where you can be using all those resources. But yeah, I still don't think that's great. Like, I think you play this, your opponent uses the resource first, they get tempo advantage, and they get to 20 law first.
Yeah, this card's actually terrible. I hate it. Don Carnage is a 4/4 evasive, which quests for 2. I actually think this card's pretty damn good. Not spectacular.
No, this card's pretty bad.
I think this card will see some play in Mill, for example. It's a 5-cost card, so it can sing. 4 defense for an evasive. Pretty difficult to remove. I quite like it.
I don't know.
But I'm thinking with my Mill hat
yeah, I'm not judging the card based on how good it is in Mill.
Oh, but I just love Mill.
It is better than Goofy. It's just straight up better. The Goofy that's 3/4 evasive with exactly same cost and everything else. But I don't think Goofy is not a good card, and I don't think this is a good card either.
This will see play in Mill, so it gets a tick from me. At least it might see play in Mill. I think it will probably just about see play in Mill. Scroop Backstabber. 2/5, quest for 2. While this character has damage, he gets +3 attack. Seems pretty bad. No thank you.
Yeah, because on the first attack, which is the one that matters the most, it will be a 2/5, and only then it gets +3.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
Rufus, which is an orphanage cat. Aww. 4/5, quest for 1. When this character is banished, you may put this card into your inkwell face down and exerted. That's just too slow for a ramp card. It's like a Gramma Tala, which has got some stats, but costs 3 ink more.
Yeah. It only quests for 1.
Yeah.
Why would my opponent not ignore this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Helga Sinclair, super rare, 4/4, uninkable, quest for 2. Shift 3. This changes so I think the other Helga Sinclair we looked at was like this 2-cost 2/1, which if she's banished, you remove a card of your choice. Whenever this character or remove the card that challenges her. Whenever this character quests, you may deal 3 damage to chosen damaged character.
So it's all this damaging damaged characters is pretty good with steel together, right?
Yep.
But it's always an emerald, this type of effect so far. Shifting this can be good, but then we would also already need them to have a damaged character, which is pretty hard. Let's say because if you just shift this on 3 and we can immediately use the effect, that would be pretty good. I don't think the card that good.
Yep. It's definitely got potential in the right deck, though.
Yeah, it does.
3 damage is a lot.
Because like if this just sticks and it could lead to situations where if your opponent can't remove this, every character they play, you can just maybe like ping with a Robin Hood or some small cheap effect or like a Tinkerbell, and you just quest with this and keep clearing off all those characters.
We have Thaddeus E. Clang, which is a 3/5 quest for 2. Whenever this character quests while at a location, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. Again, I just think the location, like you're paying to move this guy to a location, and therefore,
and you're already paying extra.
It's not that good.
And we're already paying extra because it's lower statted.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Okay, we have a Legendary Maleficent here. It's a 2/3 quest for 2. Whenever this character quests, you may draw a card. And during your turn, whenever you draw a card, you may move 1 damage counter from a chosen character to a chosen opposing character. So, you play Maleficent, you quest with her the following turn, you draw a card, and you can remove 1 damage counter from her and damage something else. And of course, if you draw then any other cards, like you play any of your other Maleficent characters, you can continue to do that. Seems like it's got some potential, but I feel like it's gonna get removed quite a lot. Like it's got only 3 willpower. It's gonna be a big smash target, for example.
Yeah, I think it's okay, but I think it's too vulnerable, and most of its effect only happens once it survives an entire turn. And then also you might, for the second part of the effect, you might need a damaged character. So I think for that reason, it's not good enough.
It's definitely good, but yeah, I just don't think it's gonna make the cut in the most competitive of lists. We have another legendary, Robin Hood, Shift 3, 3/6, quest for 2. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore. And when this character is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card. This card seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, its design is interesting because while the effects make it so that it wants to challenge, at the same time it is pretty good at questing as well. It's just an all-around very versatile card. And also, this is a card can be very good if it's shifted, right? At 3/6, that comes down on turn 3 and can already challenge. Maybe you already gain 2 lore for the challenge.
Yeah, and we've seen
I see some potential in this.
Robin Hood kind of synergy between Emerald and Steel, and of course, Emerald also have this. Is it called Morph? The 2 cost? I keep forgetting its name.
Yeah, it's Morph.
Yeah, so another target.
Yeah, and then even after that, assuming this is challenged, this is banished in a challenge, you also get to replace itself. I think that's interesting and actually pretty good.
Yeah, I like this card. We have a Magic Broom, 5 cost, 4/4 uninkable quest for 2. It has Rush, and when you play this character, you may shuffle all Broom characters from your discard to your deck. So basically, you put a load of bad cards from your discard pile back into your deck, because Magic Brooms are kind of bad.
Yeah. So I don't want to be doing that. And 5 cost 4/4 Rush is not good enough on an uninkable.
Yeah. Okay, we have Kida, another legendary. This one, we saw a Kida. There's a standard 1 cost 2/2, and there's also the Steel Bodyguard, but most likely the shift target is going to be the Amber 2/2, which costs 1. When you play this character, all characters get -3 strength, -3 attack until the start of your next turn. So what Kida is doing is she's kind of buying you an extra turn as an aggro deck. So if you're about to get board wiped, like your opponent's developed a lot of characters which are ready to challenge your characters, you can play Kida and then quest with all of your characters, and suddenly you're able to maybe get an extra turn of questing out. I think she's going to be a good finisher for aggro decks.
Yeah, and also you could, if you shift her, maybe your opponent already has exerted characters, you can just trade into them without taking damage.
She also would lose her own strength, I believe.
Oh, all characters can. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It is the
yeah. So she's like a last ditch play, right? She gives you an extra turn of questing, which is actually a really big deal.
Yeah, I think
very good,
that
actually.
can still be very good. Yeah.
It's got a lot.
Very impactful.
We have Prince John, which is a 2/4 uninkable quest for 2. Whenever this character quests, each opponent with more lore than you loses 2 lore.
I think it's too expensive for what that is.
Yeah.
Especially with this effect only happening the turn after you play this.
Yep. We have Lady Marian, which is inkable 4/4 quest for 2. When you play this character, chosen character gets -2 attack. Sorry, -2 attack for this turn. I don't think it's doing enough.
Yeah.
We have Captain Hook, Inkable 5/4, quest for 1. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, ready this character, he can't quest for the rest of this turn. And character's name, Peter Pan, lose evasive and can't gain evasive. If Peter Pan is meta relevant, maybe, but probably not otherwise. So you can challenge multiple times with Captain Hook. If you remove something, he can then challenge again. But I just don't think it's good enough. Maybe if it had Rush, I could get behind it, but no.
Probably not. It's similar to Scar, but without the Rush and a lot cheaper and inkable. So it's very good at like being the single card that can like wipe aggressive boards.
There's also this
while
what's it
pressuring
called?
them.
The Tiger, Sher Khan or whatever he's called.
Shere Khan.
Sher Khan could be good with that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the Shere Khan is good, but this can help you to like efficiently clear those pesky boards while still getting some
Shere
on
Khan
your
is
own.
definitely a good card on paper. It's just a lot of the meta was bounce orientated, right, and not actually giving you cards to exert. So maybe in a different meta, like Shere Khan plus this could be good.
Sure, it's just the meta needs to be like focused around actual board combat and challenging, and that hasn't
this
been the case
Ursula
so far.
card, which is banishing Be Prepared and banishing Grab Your Swords. We could see more of a challenge meta develop. I could see it.
Maybe.
But even then, I still am not that huge on this card. It's okay, though. It's got potential. Nanny, which is a 3/6 bodyguard, quest for 2. 3/6, pretty good stat line, similar to Goofy, but quest for 2. I actually don't mind this card. This would be a very good target with Just in Time, but most aggro decks have kind of moved away from Just in Time and favor playing the bounce package. But if you're playing like Steel, Amber, maybe like with Just in Time, this card could be a very serious option.
Yeah, it's a slightly better Goofy, which is alright.
Stratos, which is a 4/4 evasive, and you can exert it, gain lore equal to the number of Titan characters you have in play. I'm not sure that I've seen many Titan keywords, but I haven't been looking out for them. But I imagine this is not very good, but could maybe be down the line.
Yeah, because this, I don't know, you would need like 3 Titans in play for this to quest for more than 2, and if it just quests for 2, then
I guess it includes itself though, right?
Okay, yeah, so you need 2 more Titans in play for this to be good. If you have 1 more, then it's
so imagine you just draw all 4 of your Stratoses and you just play all 4 of them, and each of them are questing for 4.
Sure, I think it will take some time to get all of those Stratos into play.
This card's got potential though when more Titan cards get printed.
Sure, if you get, but the problem is, I feel like this card would be really good if you have like cheaper Titans, but I don't think Titans are cheap inherently.
Yeah. We have Billy Bones, which is a 6/5, very standard stat line, and not going to see any play.
Yep.
We have Pyros, which is a 5/4 quest for 1. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready chosen character. Importantly, this says ready chosen character. It doesn't say ready chosen character they can't quest for the rest of the turn. So this card actually has potential.
Yeah, and unlike Captain Hook, he can ready other characters, not just himself. But he's still able to ready himself. So I think he's a little more flexible than that.
There might be some loops you can create with Pyros, right? Where you remove something with him, ready something else, and then ready him again.
And then attack again. Yeah, there could be some stuff there.
Yep.
Still, the stats are not great.
It's also a Titan! Oh my goodness. Okay. You didn't seem that impressed that it's a Titan.
Yeah, but it is a Titan.
We have Stitch, a 3/3 evasive. While this quest for 2, while this character is at a location, he gains ward.
Nah, can't be doing that. That's too much for a 3/3.
It's evasive.
Ward evasive together are very strong keywords, but needs to be at a location for that. And what if they just destroy the location and then this no longer has ward? It's a 5/3/3. I don't like it.
I don't think it's terrible, but yeah, I tend to agree. I think like the overall, like most cards that are working with locations are just not really worth the payoff. Apart from this Jim Hawkins card.
Yep.
Mama Odie, so on to the 6 costs. It's a 3/6 uninkable, quest for 2. Whenever this character quests, you may move up to 2 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Powerful ability, if you can pull it off, but...
But it costs 6 is the issue. Yeah. 6 and uninkable, I think that's too much.
Agreed. We have Robin Hood. This is a card in the starter deck. It's a 4/5, but it quests for 4. That's a lot of questing.
Yeah, I don't think this card's awful. I like this card more than Mama Odie.
Yep, me too.
Quests for 4.
I will say, though, a problem this card has is a lot of aggro decks tend to cap out at 5 ink. Because of the nature of you inking a card each turn, you tend to not want to go to 6 ink unless you have a lot of card draw. Emerald inherently doesn't have a lot of card draw, but it also does have 6 ink Genie. So Emerald does quite like to get to 6 ink and then kind of stop. So if you can find a deck where you get to 6 ink, this could be a very good card.
Mm-hmm.
Magic Broom, a 6 cost uninkable, 3/3, quest for 1. When you play this character, if you have a sorcerer character in play, exert an opposing character. The chosen character doesn't ready at the start of the next turn. This seems too niche for a 6 cost uninkable card, and its stats are terrible.
Yeah, this is like a budget Elsa. It only hits 1 and it only quests for 1.
Mm-hmm.
But in turn it costs 2 less. So yeah, I don't think it's good enough whatsoever.
We have Little John, which is a shift card, 6 cost inkable, 4/5, super rare, 2 lore. While this character is exerted, your characters with bodyguard gain resist 1 and get 1+ lore.
That's 1 lore is really good.
Yeah.
And like the combination of resist and lore, that's a lot of stats to be giving bodyguards.
And you can shift it for 4 as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if we have a bodyguard deck, but this is really good with bodyguards, right?
Yep. And bodyguard is a very good keyword, I have to say. It would most likely be an amber steel deck, judging by all the bodyguards that you've got available there.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's probably still not crazy good.
Yeah.
But resist. So you also need bodyguards, because if you don't have bodyguards, then they will just challenge this. Yep. But it's still very expensive, and then it's only once this is exerted that the fact comes into play.
Yeah, the fact this costs 6 is also a problem, because again, as I mentioned, a lot of these aggro decks, which I would assume a bodyguard deck is some kind of aggro deck, tend to cap out at 5.
Yeah, I think the way you need to be playing a deck like this is you play all the cheap bodyguards, and then you also need to be shifting this on 4, and then suddenly quest for a lot with all your bodyguards each turn, or for a few turns, and get over that.
I like this card though; it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We have Aid, which is it's Hades. I was reading the Italian, I think that is. Hades, Wrathful Ruler. It's a 6 cost inkable 5/5 quest for 2, and you can exert it and ready your Titan characters.
Suddenly, if we have a lot of Titans, we can quest for a lot with the evasive and then ready it back with Hades.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No, me neither.
Wait, is this even a Titan?
I don't think so. It's a Storyborn Villain deity.
Yeah. Okay, that's bad.
Okay, we have a rare Peter Pan, 6 cost, 4/5, quest for 2, shift 4, evasive. Whenever he challenges a pirate character, this character takes no damage from the challenge. No thanks, too niche.
Yep, no thank you.
We've got a legendary. This is Hydra, 6 cost, uninkable, 6/5, quest for 2. When this character is damaged, deal the same amount of damage to a chosen opposing character. So you can challenge with Hydra, dealing, let's say, 4 damage. Well, you deal 6 damage, you remove something with 4 willpower. No, when this character is damaged, I mean, it's got potential. You can remove multiple things at once, but I don't like it that much. Like if
it's also
go on.
It's also just this like mid-game threat that if your opponent wants to remove by dealing damage to it, then you still get something out of it. If instead of Dragonfire they say the Zeus card that deals 5, suddenly you also get to deal 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a card that's very annoying to deal with, but it is also not. No, actually, I think this card's pretty good.
I think this card's pretty good as well.
I wanted to say it's not that threatening, but just like assuming your opponent could just ignore it. But once they ignore it, you might just take a trait and kill banish a character with the trait, but also banish a different character with this effect. And I think this card's actually.
Yeah.
I think I like it.
I like this card too. And I also like that a lot of the legendaries this set are actually pretty good cards. In previous sets, we've had some pretty terrible legendaries, and I don't think there's that many of them in this set.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of cards are a lot harder to evaluate than last set because they're a lot more interesting in how they function.
Okay, we have another legendary, this one in Amber. Uninkable 6 cost, quest for 2, it's a 1/6, and it's Perdita. When you play this character, and whenever she quests, you may play a character with cost 2 or less from your discard for free. So, of course,
I think that's all right.
with Rockstar Stitch, you could, when you play her and when she quests, so she's got an instant impact, you could then get one of your poppies out, for example, or another 2 costs like Piglet, Pooh, Pirate Captain. Maybe you could exert it if you're Rockstar Stitch, draw another card. I think it's pretty decent. I do think 6 cost is quite expensive for decks that are playing a lot of 2 cost or less for free.
But you don't need to be playing a lot as long as you're playing a few good ones. I think that's really good because.
Okay, one use I can think of this actually is maybe not even in Rockstar Stitch decks. I think this is actually not a Rockstar Stitch deck card necessarily, but let's say you're playing Simba in your deck. You can then play Perdita on turn 6, put the Rockstar Stitch back in. Put the Simba back in hand, and then you can just use it for ink, right?
Oh. What do you mean back in hand?
You have to play it.
Play it. Oh, but that's good.
Which is still very good, yeah.
I think the way this card works is just it's a really good mid-range threat as she is a threat herself, but also you get another threat on the board. Both of them unexerted, both of them ready to quest next time.
Yep.
Very annoying to deal with. And if you don't deal with her, then they're just getting another character. That is just maybe if you just combine the stats of those 2 characters, maybe they wouldn't be incredible rate for the amount of ink that you're paying. But the fact that they're on 2 different characters, I think makes it a lot better because that's a lot harder to deal with. I also like this card.
Yeah, I think this card's great. I mean, you get the value of her instantly, but then also when she quests.
Yeah, just imagine like in a somewhat aggressive deck or mid-range deck.
With like a dock as well, right? You could quest with dock and play this on 5 potentially.
Yeah, and you play this and you get back one of the 2 cost 1/1s that is able to quest for 3. Suddenly with 1 card you're threatening 5 lore, and if she sticks, you're getting another threatening character on board because they're all unexerted.
Yep. Yeah, this card's actually nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this card's really, really good.
Okay, we have a super rare Alice, inkable for 4, quest for 2. She can be exerted and exert chosen opposing character and all other opposing characters with the same name. Realistically, it's going to be too niche, right? It's not very often you're going to be exerting more than 1 character.
Yeah, and if you're just exerting 1, it's pretty bad.
We have Mr. Snoops, a 4/8 Chungus that quests for 2. Unfortunately, not very good. A lot of stats, though.
Yeah, decent amount of stats. Same amount of stats as Surfer Stitch for 1 less cost.
We have an uninkable 6 cost 4/4, super rare also, quest for 1. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 3 strength or less.
I actually think, with 3 strength or less, I think this card's really good.
Yeah.
A lot of cards that see competitive play or see play on like high level, they don't have that much strength. I think a lot of them have high willpower, not a lot of strength. Like for example, the
Lady
Perdita.
Tremaine, right? The other 6.
Yeah, it's just you get to choose, but there's a restriction on what you choose. But and it quests for this. There's 1 more strength. Okay, there's a few differences, but I think this card's really, really good.
Yep, me too. Okay, we have Kit Cloud Kicker, which is shift 3 ward, quest for 3, 2/5. I mean, shifting this on turn 3.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know. I guess you can have some very explosive openings, but then I think the 2/5 will just die and then use a few cards to create that 2/5. Yeah. I don't see it winning too many games.
Okay, Lucky Dime, a legendary item, costs 7, it's uninkable. You can exert it and pay 2 ink and choose a character of yours to gain lore equal to their lore. So this is, for example, the best target for Scrooge McDuck, which if it banishes a character in a challenge, you can play an item for free.
I think there's a lot of synergy to consider with this card, and it's not good on its own, but it can do some crazy things, I think.
Yeah.
I think the best target for this card would be Bell, right?
Mhm.
Because Bell, once you have 10 ink, Bell quests for 5.
Or
So using this
Tamatoa,
one,
perhaps.
sure, Tomato could also be huge. Let's say on Bell you just use it for 5 lore, and that's also okay. So I still think just spending 7 ink on this could very often be far too slow. But if we can cheat this out with Scooch Duck, and then we can also play the 5 cost we talked about earlier, or Dre Ramirez, which has Ward, and when it quests, it can ready one of your items. So that will very often stick, and when it does stick, we can then just play Bell and use Lucky Dime twice by questing with Ramirez. So that's in total 12 lore.
Yep.
So I think it has like huge potential, but still it's a very, very clunky conditional card.
Yep. Exciting one, though.
Very exciting.
Milo Thatch, another legendary, 4/4, shift 4, 3 lore it quests for, it's uninkable. When this character is banished, return all opposing characters to their player's hands. This is like be prepared in a character form.
Yeah, and it only bounces them back to hand, which is worse than banishing them.
True.
But I think this card's still very good. Just I imagine, especially when you shift this, and suddenly your opponent has to reset their own board, or when they don't, you can do it at a later stage and get even more value out of it. I think this card is again really hard to evaluate, but I think this card can be good.
Yeah, it's also an Emerald where we've got Morph as well, so if you're looking to shift this, it's going to happen quite consistently. There's a 1-cost Milo Thatch as well, which is a 2/2. I think that's also an Emerald card as well, so quite a lot of shift targets for this guy. Pluto, which is a rare 3/8 shift 5 bodyguard, quest for 2, and at the start of your turn, remove up to 3 damage from this character.
Yeah, I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. The Pluto that you can shift it onto is like the 1-cost 0/2, which is not a very good card, I don't think. And that's just too awkward. And then 7 cost for a bodyguard is just too expensive, way too slow.
Yeah, and at that stage of the game, the healing won't matter because your opponent will just, I don't know. I think this will, so you play it, it's not damaged, and they won't damage it unless they can banish it. And then maybe you can take a trade so it's damaged, but then it probably is banished on the next turn. So I don't think the healing will come into play that often, and then it's just too expensive for being a 3/8 bodyguard.
Yep. Oh my goodness, you're going to love this card if you've not seen it already. That's a joke, by the way. This is Maui the Whale. It's an 8/8 quest for 1. This character doesn't ready at the start of your turn, but you can spend 2 ink to ready this character. This character can't quest for the rest of this turn.
What? Why?
It's so bad.
But you can can you do it? You can do it multiple times, right? So you can play an 8/8 and then you spend 2 to attack something, spend 2 to attack something.
Wow.
Yeah.
No,
yeah, it's awful.
So bad. Is this the worst card in the game?
I don't know. It's inkable, so probably not.
Yeah. Okay, we've got another grey or another steel Simba card, so please, is this the one that's good? It's a 5/7 quest for 2. When you play this character, and whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, during your turn, choose 1. You may draw 2 cards, then choose and discard 2 cards. You may deal 2 damage to chosen character. That's not terrible, dealing 2 damage on deploy, and then when you quest with it as well.
Yeah.
And you've got the option of drawing 2, discarding 2 if you don't want to deal 2 damage.
Very flexible. But 7 ink is also a lot.
Yeah.
So for this card, for you to be happy to play this card, you need to be actually banishing something with the 2 damage on play effect. You need to get immediately something out of it, I think, to be somewhat happy. And then it's still a threat that can do multiple things.
Perhaps with Emerald, we've seen a lot of these Robin Hood cards, which want to deal damage to damaged cards already. It could find a home.
Maybe, but it's still
expensive.
The condition after the on play is also not easy to meet when it banishes something.
Right. Yeah, it's not when it's questing. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking it's when it was questing it was doing this again, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot better, because then you can push for winning the game while clearing their stuff instead of just stalling. Okay.
We have Starkey, which is a 6/6 quest for 3. Not going to see any play. We
And
have
then
King,
we have King Louis.
King
What?
Louis. It's a 7/7 that quest for 3. Also not going to see any play.
Yeah.
We have a super rare, uninkable, 7 cost, 4/6, Magicka Dispel. She has shift 5. Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to the cost of one of your items in play. Huh? So if you've got the 7, so Sapphire, Amethyst, with this 7 cost lucky dime, you'd gain 7 lore.
And then, wait, that is kind of crazy.
That is kind of nuts.
Oh, but it's not on play, it's when this character quests. But assuming you can, the easiest way to get this quest off is, I guess, shifting it.
Yeah.
Because then you can immediately quest.
Ooh, true.
There is high potential in that for sure.
Definitely.
It is a very memey deck, but it can do crazy things.
So Lucky Dime is a Amethyst Sapphire deck. That's what we've discovered looking at this card.
Lucky Dime, Magicka Dispel is the content deck.
Okay, here we are. Jafar. This card's pretty good. Oh, have you not seen this card before?
No.
Oh, God. So unaware.
Okay.
So this is a 7 cost, inkable, 4/5, shift 5, evasive, quest for 1. During your turn, while this character is exerted, whenever you draw a card, gain 1 lore. Any combinations which come to mind, Moyen?
Maybe a whole new world?
Yeah,
This card's not fair with a whole new world.
Yeah.
I think it's actually
broken, right?
Yeah, but it seems balanced if a whole new world didn't exist, probably. But it does exist. And you can just shift this and immediately sing whole new world with it.
Yeah, important to note that you're not going to be able to shift this onto Morph and sing a whole new world because, of course, that's Emerald.
Yeah, then it's 3 colors.
But a lot of people will be saying that combo, so I wanted to point that out. You're not able to do that. So you're going to be relying on Jafar cards. There is a 2-cost Jafar in Steel, which is pretty damn good. It's like the Corella card, which can challenge Carefree Surfer to 3/1, I think, which can challenge evasive cards. That's a pretty good Jafar. We saw a 3-cost Jafar earlier on in this set, which we said is not that good on its own, but as a shift target, it's good. So this is going to be definitely a meta-defining card. I think there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I don't know if this will actually lead to like whole new world being banned or something. So I don't know if those 2 cards are allowed to exist in the game together.
It's 5 defense, evasive, so it is targetable by Zeus. And I think also the other thing to note is that you are going to be, if you're not able to shift this Jafar, the combo is obviously not going to be as good. So removal cards that dealing with Jafar are going to be very popular. Things like Smash, Fire the Cannons, etc. These kinds of cards to remove the shift Jafars, I think is going to be quite common.
Yep.
Insane card though. Probably the most insane card from the set.
Yeah, it's incredible ceiling.
Gramma Tala, also shift 5, quest for 2. She's a 4/8. Whenever a card is put into your inkwell, gain 1 lore.
Okay.
This is like a more fair version of Jafar.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do the craziest things, but maybe it can even be better based then. So let's just say late game, once. So playing this on the turn where you ink to 7 isn't great, right? Because then you're not getting.
This seems to me like a Steel Sapphire card, right? With Fishbone Quill, Whole New World.
Yeah, or maybe even probably just that. It could also be Ruby Sapphire, but just a deck where you ramp a lot and then you can just play this, then do your ink for the turn, and maybe also do like Fishbone Quill or Mickey Mouse or One Jump Ahead, stuff like that.
Yeah, let's say you play this when you have 7 ink at the start of the turn. You play it, and then instantly you're able to ink another card from hand and use Fishbone Quill. It's already getting 2 lore, right? Before it's even been able to.
So it can gain some immediate lore. I'm still not sure that's good enough to make me want to play the card.
Yep. I like the card though. I think it's pretty cool. It's like a more fair version of Jafar, basically. I really am interested in cards which can gain lore in ways without questing. Okay, Mufasa, a 3 quester with 10 defense, 3 attack. Not very good though.
Yep, very bad.
I don't know what it is with the flipping Simba and Mufasa cards in Steel, but they all suck.
Yeah. The one cost Simba is like kind of alright.
And finally, Chernabog, which is a super rare. 10 cost, 9/9, quest for 3. When you play this character, pay 1 ink less for every character card in your discard. So if you've got 10 cards in your discard, 10 characters in your discard, that is, this card will cost nothing. When you play this character, shuffle all character cards from your discard into your deck. So this is probably a card you're not going to want to play many copies of, but maybe as a card you play as a 1 or 2 of, could be very, very powerful.
Yeah, also, maybe Whole New World is a nice way to,
of course,
to fill up both players' discard files, and then suddenly you can cheat out this incredible Chernabog.
That's true.
Huge body.
Does seem like an Amber Steel card then.
Yeah, it's just like... But I can see this being played even. Okay, actually, yeah, Amber Steel is very good for it. But also they don't play that many characters. But still, I can see a few decks wanting to play at least a few copies of this. Definitely not a card you just put 4 into your deck of.
No. But as a card, even just like a 1 of, in
Yeah,
some
that,
decks, you could probably get away with it.
As a card that if the game drags on, at some stage of the game, you will be able to just jam this for very cheap.
Yep. I do definitely like the shout of playing this with Amber Steel. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, and that is all the cards in set 3. That took bloody ages, but there we go. Any closing remarks, sir?
I like this set a lot. I think there's a lot more cards that have the potential of being playable or are viable tools to build decks, right? I don't know how many of them are going to be playable, but there's a lot of options that are actually worthwhile considering. So in general, after having looked at all the cards now, I like the look of the set.
Yep, me too. Absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Moyen. If anyone's watched the whole 3 hours of this shebang, where can they find you to see more of your Lorcana stuff?
Currently, it's just a weekly podcast on Podcana with Brandon and Carver. And maybe I'll do more in the future, I'm not sure.
Let's hope so. Well, I hope to have you back on the channel again soon. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks to everyone for watching. Let us know in the comments what cards you're most looking forward to, and looking forward to getting roasted in the comments for our terrible takes, apparently.